Welcome, everyone. I call this Committee of the Whole meeting to order here at 6 o'clock in Council Chambers. I don't believe we have any remote electronic attendance.
No.
Okay, so we proceed with board appointments. My appointment of Bill Grimes to the Firefighter Pension Board to fill the unexpired term of Kevin Schoonmaker, to expire on April 30th, 2023. Apologize for the noise interruption here. Any questions on that? And then we proceed with a proclamation. It is Women's History Month, and so I'm proud to make this proclamation on behalf of the National Association of Women in Construction. Proclamation reads, whereas NAWIC Quad Cities Chapter number 50 has distinguished itself for 59 years as the voice of women in construction in the Quad City area, and whereas the work done by NAWIC Quad Cities Chapter number 50 has benefited Moline, Illinois through community development and educational programs, and whereas NAWIC Quad Cities Chapter number 50 has unceasingly promoted the employment and advancement of women in the construction industry, and whereas the construction community represented by NAWIC Quad Cities Chapter number 50 has been a driving force in fostering community development through renovation and beautification projects, promotion of skilled trades careers, and a positive vision of the future. And whereas NAWIC Quad Cities Chapter number 50 has sought to achieve successful results for Moline, Illinois, and surrounding areas in a cooperative spirit with its organizations, now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Sangeeta Rayapati, Mayor of the City of Moline, Illinois, do hereby recognize NAWIC Quad Cities Chapter number 50 and its many dedicated volunteers for steadfast work on behalf and support of women in construction, and do proudly proclaim the week of March 6th through 12th, 2022 as Women in Construction Week. Do we have a guest?
Stephanie Hintermeister.
Wonderful.
Online.
We'll turn it over to you.
I'm Becky Avis with NAWIC QC 50. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. On behalf of Quad Cities Chapter 50, I would like to thank you, the City of Moline, Mayor, and the City Council members for this proclamation for our 2022 Women in Construction WIC Week. NAWIC's mission is to enhance the success of women in the construction industry. We provide awareness of the opportunities available for women and emphasize the growing role of women in the construction industry. WIC Week is a time for local chapters to give back to their communities. Chapter 50 does so during the year through its scholarship program and by partnering with local agencies such as Humility Homes and Services, Quad City Engineering and Science Council, Winnie's Place, and the Girl Scouts of Eastern Iowa and Western Illinois. This year we are collecting daily necessity and household items to donate to the Humility Homes and Services Fresh Start Center. These donations will be dropped off to them on Friday, March 11th. Thank you again for your support.
Thank you so much for being with us. Okay. Moving to our next section. Actually, before we do that, I wanted to take just a moment of solidarity in this uncertain time when geopolitics, global politics, moment of solidarity with the people of Ukraine and their local governments who are facing very difficult situations. And when I think about what we might do if we were faced with these same situations, I think a moment of solidarity is fitting. So next we'll move to our presentations. Thank you, Ms. Gellerman. Could you please come and share your information about the United Way?
Thank you for having me here today, Mayor and Council. First of all, I want to start by introducing myself. I'm Renee Gellerman. I'm the President and CEO of United Way. And I want to thank you, and in particular the staff of the City of Moline, who have been great partners with United Way. We run a United Way campaign with the staff, and then we work with government, nonprofits, private sectors, and we raise about $7.5 million a year, and we invest a little over $2 million in Rock Island County here in social services to help people better their lives. But I'm actually here, sort of ironically, today is the start of National Reading Month also. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about our work in reading and the impact that COVID has had in the area of education. So if you'll switch the slide here for me. At United Way, we focus on 3 areas: education, income, and health. I'm going to talk mostly about education today, but we believe they're all tied together. And what I've been at United Way for 3 years, and I think the thing that really makes us different is that there's no one solution, no one organization that can really address the challenges that people have in their lives. And so we look at it holistically. And what we're going to talk about today is an example of that. We're going to focus on the area of education. Slide, please. So United Way is governed by a board of directors, obviously, but we also have an education council. And it's kind of a best kept secret for our region for a couple reasons. Every superintendent in Scott County and Rock Island County serve on this education council. We have business representatives, other funders, and then nonprofits sit on this. And we really look at the state of education in the region. We identify common challenges and common trends. And then we work together to see how can the social sector and the education sector work together to address some of those. And here today we're going to talk about an example of that. Also, as part of this education council, they were brilliant about 8 years ago. This is really unusual for any region. The only other community I've found that has something like this is Waterloo in the United States. We have what we call a data exchange. It's a data warehouse. So all the school districts, K through 12, put their academic data into a confidential warehouse, which is housed at St. Ambrose University. What it allows us to do is to get real data for our region. Otherwise, we don't have that access. We only do it for the region, Scott and Rock Island County together. We never compare one school district to another, but it really helps us identify challenges like this. So during COVID, we've been working with the school districts to find ways that we can help bolster and support their work and help our kids and families. And so we did some data analysis before COVID. We've been tracking kindergarten readiness, preschool readiness, 3rd grade reading, middle school math, science, STEM classes, high school graduation. And before COVID, when we look at 3rd grade reading, and we focus on that one right now because it is the key to success in life. So if a child's reading by 3rd grade, they're 5 times more likely to graduate high school. In fact, one thing that I've learned through COVID and doing all of this analysis, if a child isn't reading by 3rd grade, they're twice as likely to end up on public welfare or in prison. So let that sit in. So even before COVID, 61% of our 3rd graders in Scott and Rock Island County were reading proficiently. So this was already a priority of ours. We fund programs like out-of-school literacy, mentoring, early childhood education, parenting classes, and so forth to try and bolster that program, book programs. And then when we look at it now in December, 2 years into the pandemic, we are seeing 30% of our kids are reading proficiently. And that's an alarming number. And as we look at it through an equity lens, we look at different populations. So if you'll go to the next slide, you can see we have post-pandemic or pre-pandemic in the gray, and we're calling it COVID era now. In the orange, you can see the significant challenges that we're facing. So in Black students prior to COVID, 37% of Black students were reading proficiently. We're now seeing about 1 in 10 Black 3rd graders reading proficiently. Hispanic students, about a 50% drop there. 24% of Hispanic students, 3rd grade, are reading proficiently. And in white students, also about a 50% decline of 36% of our students. Next slide, please. Now, United Way, I mentioned we've been working on this for a long time. And one of the things that we've done are reading programs in schools where we actually pair a volunteer to a student in school. And then we always track that by data. Did it work? Didn't it work? Was it a good investment of time and resources? We know this program works. So in 2019, we had 100 volunteers that went into schools that read with children, and the improvement was anywhere from 85% to 100% of proficiency improvement. We talked a little bit about that critical 3rd grade milestone as it relates to graduation. It is the time in a child's life where they go from learning to read to learn. So they have to be able to read, to do math, science, all their extra work. It's a critical milestone. Next slide, please. So what we've done is partnered with all of the school districts, and we are going to implement a larger scaled volunteer connection program with students. So we're currently recruiting 500 volunteers who will commit to read once a week with the same student for 30 minutes through the end of May. And then we'll do a summer session, then a fall. We'll continue doing this program. I already mentioned we know this works. There's a lot of things in our world, in our community, that we don't know how to fix them. There's not a single solution. There's not a great option. We know this works, and we can change this number. We just have to rally together. We're also looking to raise $500,000. We're going to announce tomorrow we've raised nearly $200,000 already. But that's to make sure that we're investing and bolstering in those early education programs at the Ys and other preschools, out-of-school literacy, mentoring programs, and parenting programs as well. We've been able to do this with the great support of Group O and the Quad City Times and a number of other corporate partners. So what am I doing here at the city, and what am I asking for from you? So if you go to the next slide, most of all, I just want you to be aware of this issue. I want you to talk about it in the community. We have to face the realities to fix it. And it's important that we rally behind our teachers. As I sit in the Council of Education meetings and I listen to the stories of what the superintendents, what teachers, what city council members are bearing right now, it's very sad. It's very sad. The divisiveness, the children are picking up on habits of, there's discipline issues, and so we really are needing to stand in support of our teachers like that now. They need us. They need us. So here are the sites that we have right now. We have 14 sites. Moline, we know we're gonna have 3. We just didn't want to put the names up here till they're confirmed. I expect that any day. We have 455 students lined up already. They're ready to go. We have been rolling this out softly for several weeks. So we have about almost 300 volunteers committed already. And here are the other location. We are prioritizing Title I schools as our superintendent's requested, and it makes sense. But we're offering it all throughout the region. When you talk about 30% of students reading proficiently every school that can handle the support, we're offering that support. We're also working with some nonprofits as well. And so the next slide, please. I'll just wrap up, and this is what we're asking our community to do: champion our students and our schools. We're asking for a commitment of time. If you can commit 30 minutes a week, so I give you some perspective on that. 30 minutes a week from now till the end of the school year is 8 hours total. And we've been talking with some of the students and talking about bringing in readers. They get very excited to think about that. And I just imagine if a police officer or fireman or a city employee would go in to read to a student, how much confidence and enthusiasm that student might have. We're raising money. I'd love for the city to encourage their staff to participate. And that's all I have. I'm open to any questions. Otherwise, again, I just want to thank you for your continued partnership. The mayor's been a great partner. In fact, she's going to be at a school in Rock Island tomorrow, and we're celebrating Dr. Seuss's birthday, and she's going to read to some kids, so with some other mayors. So.
Any questions? Thank you so much for that information. South Slope Wastewater Treatment Plant Facilities Planning Update, Mr. Lodi.
Good evening, Your Honor, Council. Our wastewater treatment plants are authorized to discharge and operate in the community and discharge into the community's waterways. That authorization is granted through permits issued by Illinois EPA. And South Slope's permit was issued at the end of 2019 and included some new requirements with regard to nutrient controls that we can't meet with the current facilities that we have in place. And so about a year ago, we presented this information to you, and City Council authorized a contract to study that those options. And we brought Strand Associates forward to present the findings of the study. And I've got Troy Stinson here to do that tonight. I've also got Greg Piles. He's the treatment operations manager for our wastewater treatment plants, if there are any questions at the end. So Troy will present the information to you now. It's right under.
Which screen does he point it to?
Oh,
it goes
either
to
one.
both now? Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone. I was just talking to someone, actually 10 years ago to this date, I was in this very room presenting on the North Slope wastewater treatment plant. So it's kind of interesting. A little bit about myself. I was actually born and raised in the Quad Cities, so this area is very near and dear to my heart. I grew up in Port Byron on a farm, so I've been practicing engineering for 30 years. I've been at Strand Associates my entire career, so I've been doing wastewater treatment plants, so been very interesting. So what I'm talking about today is the Illinois South Slope Treatment Plant Project, and I just want to recognize Tony and Greg. What you don't see here today is all the workshops we've held over that 6-month period, I think, of doing the facilities plan. A lot of time and effort went into this. I looked at this as a partnership. It really was a back and forth between the city staff and the operations staff at the treatment plants. I also want to recognize Nick Bartolari, who's not here today. He was an engineer that worked very, very well with me as well as a project engineer. So our presentation outline, this is an aerial view of the South Slope facilities, which is near the mall. One thing you'll probably notice is that restaurant is no longer there. But our presentation outline is I'm gonna talk about the project goals, why we did the planning, the wastewater treatment facility history. Engineers love acronyms, so WWTF means wastewater treatment facility. Wastewater treatment facility needs and what is really the project driver. Tony mentioned nutrients, that's one of the major drivers, but there's other drivers as you'll see. We looked at what were the key considerations when you look at a treatment plant that's updated. I'm going to talk about the recommended plan and cost and the next steps and schedule, and hopefully get through this fairly quickly, put it in layman's terms. I know we have a busy agenda today. So what were the goals of the treatment plant project? This is just a photo of the aeration. So a treatment plant is a biological, you use biology to treat wastewater, and this is the heart of any treatment plant. It's the aeration tanks. You add air and the microorganisms break down organic material to treat the wastewater. So our goals of our treatment plan is to implement processes to meet regulatory requirements. So nutrient removal. Why do we have to remove phosphorus? Why do we have to remove nitrogen? Everyone ever heard of the Gulf hypoxia zone? That's all the nitrogen that's coming down the Mississippi River. Is it all point source? Is it all responsible for the treatment plant? No, it's both agriculture and point sources. But that's something that IEPA is coming down on, and basically nutrient removal is to prevent algae growth in rivers and lakes. We want to improve the efficiencies and reliability by replacing aging equipment and processes. A lot of the equipment at a treatment plant, it doesn't last for a long time. Wastewater is very corrosive. It's got hydrogen sulfide in it, and it attacks steel and equipment at a treatment plant. We want to modernize the facility to meet current design and code standards. Codes are different now than what they were when the facility was upgraded back in the 1980s. We want to provide confident direction for the next several decades. So this plan wasn't just a 1 or 5 year plan. It's indeed to serve you for several decades, 20 to 40 years for in your future. And then we want to maintain room and flexibility for future upgrades, because after phosphorus removal, there's probably going to be another requirement that IEPA is going to come down on. You've heard of PFAS. I'm not going to get into it, but that might be something that's down the road. So this is an aerial view of the treatment plant. This is the wastewater treatment plant history of construction. We thought this was very telling in itself. So shown in green are the facilities that are still in use from the 1950s, which is pretty remarkable. It goes to the staff maintaining the plant pretty well. Shown in yellow is from the 1960s. And then the last major expansion at the treatment plant was in the 1980s, which is still 42 years ago. So the plant's really served its purpose. It's really past its useful life, but as you know, it's still working and treating your effluent, but it's still time to do an upgrade of the facilities. Like again, it's 40 to 60 plus years old. So what are our project needs and drivers? The regulatory requirements, I talked about nutrient removal. Another driver is the plant age and the deficiencies of the plant. We want to consolidate the parallel processes to simplify operations. Technologies have changed. I'll talk about the newer technologies, and actually less is more, if that makes sense, and I'll have a slide of that later. We want to improve accessibility, operability, and reliability. You know, Greg's staff, they need a plant that's easy to access, easy to maintain and operate. Energy efficiency, that's a buzzword, right? We keep hearing about energy. So we want to make the plant very energy efficient. And then the administration building, we want to improve the functionality, and it's actually prone to flooding in that area. They've had one or 2 feet of water, I think, in that building at times when the river's up. So we want to address that as well. So there's some pictures just showing the age of the facility. I think a few of you have done tours down at the South Slope plant. The top picture, I'm gonna go just to, since I don't think the pointer works on a TV screen, but I'm gonna walk you through some of these photos. So kind of at the top left, that's the that's a clarifier in the tank. The concrete's in good shape, but the material, the metal is in poor shape, if that makes any sense. So that can fail, and actually you do have a failure of the excess flow clarifier, where it actually failed. The bottom picture on the bottom left is the grit removal system. Grit is a component of wastewater. What is grit? It's coffee grinds, it's sand. Sand gets into sewers. That tears up your pumps, so you want to get rid of the grit. Your grit technology is very antiquated and old. It's not very efficient. The picture in the middle, do you see the red piping? So the plant has anaerobic digesters, and anaerobic digesters, they produce methane gas. It's a byproduct. Methane gas can be very dangerous. So then I talked about the new code requirements. The new code requirements are to locate that gas safety equipment in a different area so it prevents a potential explosion. So it's very important to meet code. And then the remaining pictures at the top is just a picture of the clarifier drive. You can see it's reached its end of its useful life. And then one of the biggest things I think Greg would say is the bottom picture. You see the grease there? That's a bearing for the rotating biological contactor process. That's a process that also removes the organics from the wastewater. Those shafts have failed routinely over the last several years, especially, right? So that costs a lot of money to maintain, and eventually that needs to be taken care of. So the existing treatment plant is really overly complex and is incapable of meeting regulatory requirements of meeting the nutrient removal requirements. So this is just a schematic of all the processes at the treatment plant. Now this isn't going to be a wastewater treatment plant class. I could talk about this for days. But basically you have two of everything at the treatment plant. You have two pump stations, two grit removal facilities, and then you have an activated sludge and an RBC train for treatment. So what happened in the 1980s, rather than expand the existing plant, they basically added a separate plant onto the existing one. So the north plant is one treatment plant. It's pretty easy to operate. The south plant actually has two separate facilities. So they actually are operating two treatment plants, if that makes any sense. The simplified process, so the top is what you have. What our team came up with, the recommended plan is a simplified treatment plant, which has 9 liquid processes. So remember I said less is sometimes more. So because of newer technologies, we can actually treat the wastewater better than we used to, and we can get away with 9 liquid processes versus 15, and you have lower capital costs, lower operating cost. It's easier to operate, easier to maintain, and you have improved flexibility. So I'm not going to go through all of those, but you can see we can eliminate a lot of those processes at the new treatment facility. I mentioned improved accessibility, operability, and reliability. I'm going to walk through these photos again. These are photos from the South Slope plant. You can see the photo on the left. The bottom photo there, do you see that? That is a screen. So basically that's a bar screen. So the first step in a treatment plant, people flush anything down a sewer, right? Rags, boards at times. It's amazing what gets into the sewer. So the first step is the screen takes out the screens. Well, the screen is 2 levels down, right? Because the sewers are deep. So the staff actually have to take the screenings out, and the top picture is basically a hoist. And they take a 55-gallon drum, and instead of hauling that up the stairs, they have to manually lift that up the stairs. This is our first plant I've seen that had to do that. Most of the time that's automated. So it's kind of a dangerous situation. We want to try to improve things like that. This picture in the middle is the excess flow pumping station. I know it's hard to see everything, but there's pumps below the grading down there that they have to access for maintenance. And they have to take out a comminutor just to get to the pumps. And finally, on the right is a picture of the generator for the facility. So the South Slope plant has 2 power services, so they're never supposed to fail at the same time, right? Well, they do, and they've had in the past. So this generator only powers the excess flow pumping station. It doesn't power much of the facility. So we want the treatment plant, it has to operate 24/7. No one turns off the sewer. So basically, that's another part of the project. The existing administration building is really not functional. I don't know if you saw that aerial view, but there's some 1950s parts, there's some 1960s parts, and there's some 1980s parts. And I'm not going to go through all of these photos, but you can see it's very inefficient. And what you also see is the office space is mixed with, there's a aeration compressor. There's not enough space to store all their equipment in there. And it's very inefficient because it's been expanded on. It's like an old house that's maybe been built on 4 or 5 times. It just becomes a time where it's just not efficient. Plus, this building is in a flood area of the plant, so it floods, and that's what you're seeing kind of on the floors there. The other thing, the treatment plant this old, on the right is it's called a motor control center. And a motor control center provides electrical power to all of your equipment. Those motor control centers get old and you can't even find parts to replace them. So we looked at several alternatives during planning. I'm not going to get into all the details, but these are the 8 major alternatives that we looked at. We looked at the influent pumping and the preliminary treatment alternatives. We looked at 2 alternatives. What's shown in bold is what our team feels is the best alternative to pursue. Every alternative that you look at, we chose the most cost-effective alternative. It was less money. So if you looked at the biological treatment alternative, to demolish the RBCs and expand the activated sludge plant with biological phosphorus removal, it's $16 million less than building an entirely new treatment plant. This disinfection alternatives, we looked at sodium hypochlorite, which is basically bleach. So disinfection is the last step in any treatment plant. You basically need to disinfect the bacteria before it goes to the river. We also looked at UV disinfection. UV disinfection basically uses ultraviolet light. That was a less costly alternative, so we chose that. And then for the waste activated sludge thickening alternative, so the byproduct of any treatment plant is biosolids. So the rotary drum thickener was less. So I saved this one for last, but you might notice that the influent pumping and preliminary treatment alternatives, our team is recommending an alternative that's actually a little more money than the lower one. And the reason we're recommending that alternative is numerous reasons. One, this alternative provides screening. Remember that screen that I showed? It provides screening for all the flow at the facility. Right now, your excess flow, you have an excess flow clarifier and lagoon. None of that flow is screened. Remember that picture where I showed the comminutor? It just grinds it up. This alternative provides screening for the entire flow. It also consolidates having 2 pump stations into 1, which is a benefit for the future. So we feel strongly, I don't know if you have anything to add on that, but our team feels strongly about pursuing with these alternatives. They're cost effective and they're the best options for the next 20 to 40 years.
Troy,
Yes.
question. Go back to the previous slide. When you took a look at and chose the bolded ones, and I'm specifically looking at UV disinfection, did you also evaluate the long-term maintenance costs versus sodium hypochlorite versus UV? Have you evaluated long-term maintenance in here?
Yes. That's a great question, and I didn't say that. So what we like to do, engineers like to do what's called a total present worth cost, and that is basically the capital cost and then the operation and maintenance cost over a 20-year period, and that's the cost differences there. That includes both the capital cost and the O&M savings. So UV disinfection does have slightly higher energy costs, but there's also less chemical that has to be added, and the chemical costs have really been, like anything right now, the prices have really been fluctuating. But the UV disinfection was actually $1 million less, even considering the O&M costs in replacement of those.
Mr. White.
Yeah, along those same lines, the staff time involved with each one of those,
Yes,
was that part of that calculation, or
It
is that
was.
separate?
so what we do on the total present worth cost, we take the capital cost and we add the operation and maintenance cost over a 20-year period. And so that includes
So it
staff
includes staff,
time,
okay.
energy, O&M, and then we actually subtract salvage value, because after 20 years, if it's got a lot of concrete, that has some salvage value, which actually decreases the present worth. Yes, but the staff time was also included.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. O'Brien.
When this is implemented, how does that work? Is you're not gonna be like the 50s, 60s, and 70s where they like, okay, we're gonna build this part, but you're gonna have to keep it running until the whole new structure is built, right? Is
Yes.
that how that would work?
So I have a slide on that. I'm gonna have to defer to that, but that's called construction sequencing, and it's one of the hardest parts of our job because the site is very tight. And also the site, there's some floodplain issues that might be layering that issue, because the treatment plant's always at the lowest part of the site, right? You want all the wastewater to run downhill. So we did consider sequencing with this. That's why and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But you're right, the plant has to operate the entire time you're constructing the plant. So this is a good transition to this. This is the recommended project. This is the new structures. So the first thing is site demolition. So shown it with the X's are the facilities that we recommend you would demolish. So if you look at this, the big X is that administration building that's been expanded 3 or 4 times. Up on the top, this was automated, but the RBCs are shown with the X. underneath the blue, those RBCs, we're actually eliminating those rotating biological contactors and several other structures. But these would be the new structures. So it would be expanding the activated sludge tanks, which is in the middle. We would expand the activated sludge plant. We'd provide new inflow pumping and preliminary treatment building, new final clarifiers, which basically settle the wastewater, new biosolids handling building, new UV disinfection, and then a new administration building would go basically where the restaurant was at. It's a nice spot for that. And also maintenance facilities there. The recommended plan includes reuse or repurposing of several structures to reduce overall project costs. So there's a lot of structures here that are in reasonable shape and we're going to reuse them, keep your costs down versus building a new plant. So what's shown in red is all the structures that we feel you want to reuse. Now keep in mind we're replacing the equipment in a lot of these structures, but we're able to reuse the concrete in this, so it keeps costs down. So we're using the primary clarifiers, the aeration tanks. I know these terms are probably what's a primary clarifier, and I just don't have time to explain everything. I can,
Thank you.
but I don't think you care.
It's okay.
As long as Tony knows, I'll be happy.
You're chomping at the bit because I love teaching this stuff. to be honest with
You're
you.
basically keeping everything from the 80s.
Yes, besides the RBCs. And by doing that, obviously it's the most, more current structures, so the concrete's in good shape. But yes, that's the easy way to put it, is we're trying to reuse what we can. Similar to North Slope, right? We reused it. And that site, you talk about construction sequencing, that site was tighter than this one. But we pulled it off somehow. And then we always repurpose structures. So we're in the blue is shown where we're taking a structure and its existing use might be a secondary clarifier, but we're using it for waste storage and a fermenter. So again, I'm not going to go through what each of these are, but they're all important with wastewater treatment process. So the recommended plan includes the latest treatment technology. It's come a long way. I think the first activated sludge plant was in the 1940s, if I remember right. So we've come a long way since that period of time. So the picture on the top left is the grit removal device. Remember I said that was inefficient? That small clarifier removes grit. Grit settles faster than, right? Sand's going to settle faster than the other particles. So to the right is the stack tray system, which is shown here on the top. And that stack tray system has a lot of surface area, so the grit will hit that tray and settle out. And it removes a lot of the fine sand from the grit. The bottom picture is the blowers. So I mentioned the activated sludge system. They need air. Those are the existing south slope blowers on the bottom left. We talked about it earlier. Pumping and aeration in a treatment plant is about 80% of the energy demand. So if you can save money with aeration, shown in right is the North Slope blowers. They're high-speed, very high-efficient turbo blowers. One of the benefits at North Slope is I think our grant was about $300,000 or $400,000 to pay for a lot of the blowers. So there's grants available by Mid-American Energy and IEPA to actually pay for those blowers. So that's an improvement that a lot of people are doing. Not only do you get the energy reduction, you also get the blowers to be paid for. We talked about disinfection. The existing treatment plant at South Slope actually uses gas chlorination. And that's what you see there on the top. That's a ton cylinder of gas chlorination. So we talked about code requirements. New code requirements require you to scrub that in case there's a leak. It scrubs that. So typically we've been moving facilities away from gas chlorination, either to liquid bleach or UV disinfection. What's shown on the right is a picture of UV disinfection. It's like a supersized tanning bed with a certain wavelength, and basically the wastewater goes through and the bacteria gets inactivated before it goes to the receiving stream. The bottom left is the belt filter press. So what comes out of a wastewater treatment plant, you treat the water, remove all the impurities, and you're left with a byproduct, which is the biosolids, which is the microorganisms that actually treat the wastewater. Your current belt filter press is located right next to the administration break room. And yeah, I don't know if you've been down there.
Cool.
It's not ideal, right? And it doesn't meet code anymore. But back in the day, you used to put everything in the same building. We don't like to do that anymore. So that belt filter press, I don't know if you can see this picture, but it's very open to the atmosphere. So I mentioned that anaerobically digested sludge doesn't smell very good. So the new process is the screw press. You're familiar with that because you're doing that process at the North Slope facility. So we recommend going to the screw press. It's an enclosed unit. It's very much more operator friendly. And you're familiar with the North Slope, so we wanted to keep it consistent with both plants. All right, now, what everyone wants to know is how much is this gonna cost us, right? Treatment plants aren't inexpensive. That's why a lot of people kind of wanna ignore them if they can, right? Out of sight, out of mind. The problem with that is you need a treatment plant for growth, you need a treatment plant to meet regulations. So I'm not gonna go through all these costs today, unless you have a specific question. But basically, we took those alternatives, we broke down the costs. I think the biggest thing to concentrate on is basically at the bottom, the total capital cost, the fourth quarter 2021 dollars, we're looking at about $64 million for this facility. I think the North Slope facility came in around 41 million, but the North Slope facility was designed for about 5.7 MGD, if I remember right. The South Slope is designed for 9 MGDs, so it's actually a little less costly because of economy of scales. It's a bigger facility. Keep in mind, this facility also serves 2 other entities, East Moline and Cook County. And then you see, well, why does the number go from 64 million to almost $70 million? And that's because I'll show in a bit the schedule. By the time you bid the project, it could be that amount of time. And unfortunately, construction cost indexing, things aren't getting cheaper right now, and they never have. So waiting does cost you money whenever you look at the treatment plant project. So the preliminary financial impact, we wanted to start this off by saying the city's undertaking a cost of service study to determine the city of Moline and constituent communities' rate impacts. So what we're showing here is just the preliminary financial impacts for the plan for IEPA's purposes. These rates aren't set in stone. That's going to be determined with the rate study. So that's what we wanted to make sure that went forward. But everyone wants to have an idea of what generally would happen if you did a project like this. The rates can be phased in over multiple years. You're not going to need a rate increase immediately because you're not going to have to make the first principal and interest payment until after substantial completion of the project, which I'll show in the schedule. And again, the final user rates really are determined after the bid costs are received, right? These are estimates. We'll see what the bids come in after design of the project. So again, this is the number of the 2024 number. So IEPA loan funding is probably the best alternative to pursue with a project of this size. So the current rate is actually 0.9%. It's 1.11%, but there's a discount for phosphorus removal projects. So the current rate is 0.9%. It's very attractive. We use 2% in the facilities plan because rates have fluctuated. And from what I've been told, rates are probably going to go up slightly. And it's also better to be conservative at this stage. So if you use a 2% interest rate over 20 years, this is an principal and interest payment of about 4.3 million. The first principal and interest payment would be due around the third quarter of 2027. So basically after construction is completed, IEPA then wants you to start paying back the loan. That makes sense to everyone? So there's some time. You would need to have a revenue requirement of 4.28 million today, but by the time the third quarter of 2027 rolls around, you need to make that payment. Make sense to everyone? Timing? So Coal Valley and East Moline also has debt service, and we use 20%. They're allocated a certain capacity based on their old IGA. We probably should approach them to see if they want additional capacity at this time. But assuming that they don't want any additional capacity and they want to stay at what they're allocated now, they would be responsible for 20% of the debt service of this project. So that's what you see there. So the city of Moline, I'm going to concentrate on that. So if they were responsible for 80% of the debt service, that's $3.4 million a year. So the total city of Moline water use, this is actually sewer use, right? It's been allocated for that. Basically, that's about 977 million gallons a year. So just a quick and dirty calculation, debt service charge would be about $3.50 per 1,000 gallons. That calculation makes sense to everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Going back to capacity, you said that this plant does how much? 9?
So the plant is designed, so capacities, there's different capacities that IEP has. So during dry weather, it's 9 million gallons a day it can process. During wet weather, when it rains, the existing plant can pump around 27 million gallons per day. It needs to be designed for about 34 million gallons per day. Because right now it backs up into sewers at times.
So,
Did that help?
yeah. So based off of those numbers, how much is coming from East Moline? How much is coming from Coal Valley? I mean, are we building a plant that has more capacity than what we use and Coal Valley and East Moline combined?
There's definitely reserve capacity in any treatment plant.
how much? I mean, because like our water plant, it's like 50% excess capacity, which
Yeah.
that's why I'm just curious. I mean, I understand if we're within the confines, but
So the existing plant was designed for 9 MGD. This was one of the first things we looked at as a team. One of the options I presented is where we could potentially derate the plant for a lower capacity. So you might look at 7 MGD. Don't quote me on the numbers. I don't have them in front of me. So the 9 MGD is a little higher than what you would need for the future. But the problem is you have that permitted capacity to discharge the receiving stream. So Tony mentioned the NPDES permits that are out there that govern your discharge. So you have a 9 MGD permit. If you derate the facility, your permit would go down to 7, and you may not ever get that 9 back because IEPA is sort of cracking down on new discharges to receiving streams. So we kept the design average flow at 9 MGD for the treatment plant because that's what was established in 1980. And we felt, 1984. So we felt it prudent to keep that design average flow because we didn't want to lose permitted capacity for potential future industry that might move into town. So Coal Valley,
yeah. So what's the percentage excess?
I'd have to get back to you. I have that. It's like one of the first technical memorandums we did like 8 months ago, so
Okay.
I don't have it right. But I can get that for you.
That'd be great.
If you guys recall, but I don't want to tell you a number that's not correct. So
I
I'd
don't
rather
want you
get
to tell
back
me the wrong. Yeah.
It's a good question, but there's definitely reserve capacity in the treatment. So not to complicate this, there's reserve capacity for design average flow at the treatment plant, but there's not reserve capacity for peak flow. You're actually over your peak flow capacity.
And are those the things to the south?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the big lagoon and the
Yeah.
2 clarifiers.
Yeah. That's what I figured.
But you also need to screen and pump that, and you
Yeah.
don't have the pumping capacity. So what is we just looked at this? What is Coal Valley? 0.8 MGD capacity, and I believe East Moline is 1 MGD capacity. So they're about 1.8 million gallons per day average of the 9 permit.
Okay. Thank you.
One of the other things I want to mention before we get on that, the capacity of a treatment plant, a lot of those structures that I shown, a lot of that sizing is on the peak flows as well, the clarification capacity. There's some that's based on the design average flow, but by reducing the capacity, you don't save as much money. That 9, if you reduce it, you don't save as much money as you think because a lot of it's sized on the peak flows. So I mentioned that debt service, the 3.5. What does that really mean? We did an evaluation. A typical resident uses 3,400 gallons a month. Kind of crazy how much water we use, right? That's showers and just dishwashing and bathing. So the current rates currently, if you use 3,400 gallons a month, it's about $32 a month for sewer. Post-project rates using 3,400 gallons a month using the simple calculation. Again, I'm not saying this is what your rate needs to be, but preliminary would be about a $44 a month charge. So it's about a $12 a month increase. If you look at that, I've done this for a lot of different communities. It's a $44 a month charge is pretty reasonable for a treatment for a city that has new treatment facilities. If you think about what you pay for cable, your cell phone, your electric, and your gas, it's much more than that. I do this for a living, but wastewater treatment plant's pretty important. And it's pretty reasonable rate compared to other facilities that have new treatment facilities.
Mr. White?
Did we have a rate increase when we did the North Slope as part of that
Yes.
process as well?
Yes.
So how, because this is a 37% increase, what was,
I don't remember what we did at North Slope, but the rates did go up, Tony, didn't they?
Yeah.
I don't remember the amount.
There were a series of rate increases and, I don't remember the exact number, but, the current rate obviously is $6.42 per 1,000 gallons.
could we get that?
Yeah,
I just kind
absolutely.
of want to see, because we finished that in 17, 18? So then that will drop off, is that a 20-year?
2038.
Okay. So I'm
There's like
assuming
a 10-year difference.
yeah. Well, that's why I'm trying to figure out kind of how this staggers, because there's going to be a huge debt that drops off at that point. Is that included with what we need for this debt service?
Yeah, so we will bring you a full detailed financial model in near the end of Q2, and it'll give a bunch of different options, and it'll show the long-term financial plan for the utility.
Thank you for that.
All right, thanks.
Great.
And again, this wouldn't necessarily have to be a rate increase right away. You would have until 2027 to do those rate increases. And there's also some grant funding that you might be able to get. Right now is a pretty good time to borrow. The IEPA, you've heard the bipartisan bill, they're actually infusing a lot of money into the IEPA loan program. Because $70 million is a good chunk of change. They basically have about $600 million available per year, and that might go up dramatically with the bipartisan bill over the next 5 years.
Thank you.
So I'm almost done. Project schedule. This shows you what it takes to build a treatment plant and how many steps there is. So there's typically 3 steps. The project plan that we just completed, we'd like to submit that to IEPA March of 2022. It doesn't require you to do anything, but it does get you in line for funding. So we highly recommend you submit it. You get on this funding list. There's other communities that would like this funding because it's very attractive interest rate. IEPA typically takes about 6 months to review a project plan because they have many down at the state. We would potentially begin design. So after planning, you design the treatment facilities, and then you do bidding, and the contractor will construct them. So there's 3 main phases. So basically, if you look at that, because of the project size, the design takes over a year to do. You would be looking at advertising for bids in 2024. Constructing a project of this size typically takes about 3 years. I think North Slope took just under 3 years to construct, and it's a little bit smaller. And that's because of all the construction sequencing that you talked about. I don't know if I have time to explain that, but if you looked at, I said I was going to go back to that, didn't. So if you looked at this, hold on. You can see we tried to strategically locate these structures. Keep moving away from the microphone, I apologize. So that you could build these facilities without impacting the existing plant. The most difficult part will be we'd build the aeration tanks before we would demolish the RBCs, so that we would have treatment capacity, because when you demolish the RBCs, you would need that capacity. So we have this stage where the influent pumping station is located where we construct the influent pump station and keep the existing pump station in service. But there's a lot of thought that goes into this during design, and we actually read a construction sequence that we want the contractor to follow. But there is a rhyme or reason, and we feel it is buildable, and it's actually easier to build than the North Slope facility, which was really difficult. Does that answer your question? I think I'm almost done. And then project timing. So we talked and we looked at phasing. We talked to potentially of maybe delaying this. It does feel like because the plant hasn't been expanded for 40 to 60 years and things are failing that. This is a graph. The Engineering News Record is basically a magazine that tracks the construction cost index. And what the construction cost index is it tells you how high construction is inflating, right, per year. So if you look at the graph, generally speaking, construction costs in the wastewater field have increased about 3% a year. If you can borrow money for 0.9% or 1%, it's typically more. You're typically have a more affordable project by doing that project sooner versus waiting. What we've seen recently, you see that big spike in 2021. That's COVID related. We're hoping that'll settle down, but obviously with things that are going on right now, it's probably not going to settle down right away. But if you look at the schedule, by the time you would bid the project, it would be a couple of years from now anyways. So it might be pretty good timing. There's financing available, and maybe costs would settle down by about that point in time. But if you waited to do this project till 2030, you would be looking at a $4 million project just by using it.
We had a question from Mr. Moyer.
Yeah, just quick question about future-proofing this thing. We know that there are new regulations and new things, and we know we're going to have to deal with the PFAS problem. You kind of mentioned it. What is this facility being designed to deal with that, or is that going to require additional capital?
Yeah, so if you were to have to deal with PFAS, hopefully source control is the big thing, because it's very difficult to treat at a wastewater treatment plant. So we aren't designing any PFAS into the treatment plant, because we've heard that that's several years from now. They're going to look at source control first, try to limit the amount of PFAS that's getting in to the wastewater treatment plant. But like I said, we've tried to build in things like future total nitrogen. You might have to spend some money to meet the total nitrogen limit in the future. We do have that based. We do definitely look at future regulations and try to lay out the plant so we can add those facilities. Okay.
Mr. Waldron?
Troy, two questions for me, and then maybe this is for Greg or Tony too. This plant used to, in my knowledge, take in trucked waste, septic and all that. Is the design still there so that will still happen? Do you guys still intend to take in trucked waste, septic waste? And does this design allow for it? And then my second question is that we've always had a issue with our gas production. We burn off a lot of gas. Have you considered the reuse of gas at this facility to maximize that ability? And will the new process change up or down the amount of gas that we generate?
The gas production is a function of the wastewater coming in and the constituents in the wastewater. Now, if we bring in additional waste, whether it's hauled or introduced into the sewers, that would allow extra gas to be produced, and really the potential for harnessing that gas and using it for energy is something that we can look at, but we would need to up the gas production in order to get to the point where investing in the facilities to harness that gas would be cost effective.
Do you still intend to take in septic and stuff of that nature?
Yes, so part of this plan would be to create a receiving tank so that we can incrementally start doing that.
And any other interest in like photo cells on roofs or any kind of energy maximization there?
Yes, we actually were contacted prior to the start of this study to put some solar panels out over the excess flow lagoon. And we didn't want to do anything at that time because we weren't sure what the long-term plan for those tanks were. But that is a definite option at this point. And there are many third parties that would be willing and interested to partner with us on.
Thank you.
So Mr. Timian first.
I think Alderman Waldron asked my question about the gas production and if there was a way for us to use that as potentially cost saving and or revenue stream, or if this is something that could be bolted on in the future fairly easily.
Yes, and this is something prior to the pandemic that staff was studying. We had an engineering partner we were looking at feasibility to pursue, and when the pandemic hit, that project was put on hold. We could
This is the
look at that.
biogas we've
Yes.
talked about in our working
Mhm.
group. So
Yep.
I've been brought up to speed just a little bit about that, so we can talk about bringing that information back to the council.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Wynn?
that's my question. I thought we had voted on hiring a consultant to do the engineering for that, didn't we?
We did, and staff was given direction to halt the project by the administration at that time.
Oh, that never came back to count. I mean, we didn't vote to do that, did we?
It was given by the administrator at the time.
Oh,
It was-
okay. Because when you were talking about it, I was like, I thought we already did this. Okay, that's troubling. Question for you for the choices we've made, or that you guys have suggested through this process. Are there alternative choices or whatever that other communities, sometimes when you do some of the things like, well, we're going to ask for the Cadillac and hopefully we'll get the Cadillac, but are there alternatives that other communities are using that would be less expensive but still meet the requirements, or?
Yeah, great question. So one of the newer technologies we looked at was the aerobic granular sludge one, which is a newer technology. There's 4 or 5 communities that are using it. It's based on aqua aerobics out of Rockford. We actually did the cost evaluation of it, and it was going to be $16 million more. So sometimes, the newer technologies aren't always the less cost effective. So facilities of your size, really, this is, an activated sludge plant using the facilities that you have is 99% of the time the least cost effective alternative. The only other alternative that could be less expensive would be a Band-Aid approach, in my opinion, which would be to maintain or to redo all your RVCs. Do you really, that technology is not being used anymore, really.
Yeah.
So we ruled a lot of those technologies out. We actually probably looked at 25 different alternatives before we screened them down. Some people have used land application of wastewater to try to save money. but where you're located, there's not farms, you need big lagoons. And it's typically for smaller communities. They've used that technology pretty effectively. But like I said, we feel really comfortable, confident about this plan. We think it's a good plan. It's cost effective. I know it is a big number, but we've also had really good service out of your existing facility as well. We tried to reuse the structures we could, and we also kept the anaerobic digestion in so we can generate future biogas. The new process is going to basically probably produce the same amount of biogas as the new ones. RBCs typically produce a little less solids, so you might have additional gas production. The plant does use its biogas. They use it to heat the digester. So those digesters that that produce the biogas, they need to run about 98 degrees. So especially during the wintertime, they take that biogas that's produced and they run it through a boiler to heat the sludge up. So you are reusing your biogas, but there is some that's being flared as well, especially in the summer.
Mr. Went.
Yeah, one other quick question. So this, I saw about 750,000 for a new building that be on the restaurant location. Is
Yes.
that about that? We're looking at also building another $500,000 for a new park office. Was there any discussion about some kind of combination, or, I mean, every time you build a new building, you lose economies of scale. If you're able to put them under the same roof or something like that, there may be some real savings as far as, you know, space utility, because it looks like there's space. I know that they're having some problems with trying to squeeze that building in with parking and all that stuff down at the pool.
There haven't been any specific talks with regard to park offices or anything like that. But I can tell you that the space allocation for the office and garage are modest in size and actually being downsized because of the number of employees there over the years has been actually reduced. But we do need to have facilities to house the vehicles and the employees that will work out of there. The one other thing I'll tell you that we did look at was options for expandability of the maintenance garage in the event that we need to house other utility employees there in case the water maintenance garage were to need to be relocated.
Well, that was going to be the other question there.
Yes,
Space-wise.
Mr. Vitas would like to comment.
No, I just have a question I want to answer. I don't have an answer to that question because I haven't been engaged in those discussions about the design work that's going on at the Park and Recreation Department with the Park Board. I know there's a lot of discussion going on, but that's the first time I've heard anything about the space needs for the offices, operational needs. But my question really relates in part to what you brought up about the water treatment plant. Obviously, we have a water treatment plant that has magnificent capacity, some of which we're going to be selling very shortly to Silvis and to others down the road, some of which we'll need ourselves for future growth. Because I believe when that plant was built, this was a heavily industrialized community and there was a lot of water production that was used at that time. It's what created those industries, actually, when they harnessed that water. And then, so we have this plant, and as those industries left, the capacity grew, right? So now we're looking for ways to use that capacity. This particular wastewater treatment plant on the south slope interests me because as you look at the future growth and development of the city of Moline, south of the Rock River, because everything will flow to this plant from that side, has this plant, you know, as it was built originally through the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, 80s, and then to today, looking at the plan, Troy, that you're presenting, will it address future growth and development, either residentially or multi-use type developments south of the airport so that we don't have to look at expanding it in the future? Is it already sized for that?
It depends on if you get a wet industry, right? If you get an industry that is wet, basically, they use a lot of wastewater, you never can account for that. But it definitely does have residential capacity for serving residential growth in that area.
As was planned in the 2001 comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
So you took that
We
into
looked at all the
consideration.
future, yes, that was what we did at the
good
beginning.
to know.
Yes.
Very
But if
good.
there's an industry that has 2 million gallons of water that they might discharge, you know, that would be something you want to look at again. But
Well, I'm sure East Moline or might need that.
We'll
industry.
find a
Yeah.
lagoon.
you never know, you might find an industry that wants to use that much water, but yeah. But yes, it does have.
Wacky one.
That's
Thank you.
important. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sorry to
This
take
is-
this.
No, this is very, very helpful, and
Extremely useful.
we all have information to come back to council with. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it. Enjoyed working on it.
Is there any public comment this evening? Seeing none, we'll move to questions on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move to our agenda items. The first one being the 2022 SHPO agreement. Mr. Butas.
Sure. What we're looking at is the renewal of an agreement that we've had in place for a period of 10 years, which expired in October of 21. And this is a 5-year renewal of that agreement with the State Historic Preservation Office.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Alderman Waldron, second by Alderman O'Brien. I'm sorry. A motion by Alderman Waldron, seconded by Alderman O'Brien. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Number 2, 1045-2022, amending the rules and regulations of the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners. Mr. Vitas.
Yes, this is an item that the police chief worked on with legal counsel and with the Board of Police and Fire Commissioners, and this is an update to the rules and regulations governing the operations of the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, which I do not believe have been updated since 2018. So they're a little overdue, but on time.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman O'Brien, seconded by Alderman Went. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 3, 1049-2022, Silvis Water Main Extension Design Service Agreement. Mr. Vitas.
Yes, Mayor and Council, again, thanks to the efforts of Mr. Lodi and his discussions with Nevada Lemke in the city of Silvis and tracking this for months on end. Before you is the design service agreement that we'd like to enter into in order to provide for the future extension of water utility to the city of Silvis.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Went, second by Alderman Timian. Discussion? Mr. Went?
I just wanted to thank Tony and the staff about getting this together. This is, as Alderman Waldron and I were talking
20
about
years.
this is one of the
Wow.
best things that have happened in a long time. And so thank you very much for pushing this and getting this done. The one caveat with supporting this is just want to make sure, I know you guys are working through the IGA or whatever, that we don't wind up.
Somebody's here.
Yeah, we don't want to spend in $100,000 and then there's a hiccup in the drafting. So like, because I know because of the work session and us not meeting until the 28th or whatever, that want to give authority to do it. But if you feel like there's a chink in the armor or something like that, don't spend the $100,000 until we know that it's a thumbs up and good to go. So
I believe they are also meeting this evening, and we're hoping to hear after our meeting and after their meeting that their council did approve going forward. And if they do approve the proposal, which was approved at the Public Works and Finance Committee, which comprises certain members of council,
Yep.
that we would be actually bringing back an IGA on the 29th is the plan to get that in place so that,
and they may see it by the 15th, right? If it's done.
yeah,
Any further questions or comments?
but any chinks, we're not moving forward.
We're gonna use that word now from now.
Chinks in the armor, yeah, I like it.
All right. Hearing nothing else, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 4, 1047-2022, Utility Drainage Easement Deed of Dedication Resolution.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I'm happy to report that after an extended period of time, probably as long as I've been here and maybe a month longer, starting with discussions again with Tony Lodi and the property owners about utilities, this would be to approve and then record the utility drainage easement on the property that is about to be annexed into the city. As you know, they had previously extended those utilities under the condition that once we annexed it, then we would allow them to physically connect and make utilization, but not until such time that the annexation agreement was approved and recorded. So this is one step in the next two in order to move this forward.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman O'Brien, seconded by Alderman Went. Any discussion? Hearing none. Jeez, I'm so used to roll call. I can't get it out. Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 5, 1050-2022 Annexation Agreement, Van Ackers First Edition Subdivision Lots 6, 7, and 8.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this would be the annexation agreement, which has gone through a few renditions over the last several months, but in working with David Silverman and Ansel and Glenk, and with staff, myself and Tony and others, this represents the final annexation agreement to be brought forward for approval for those lots 6, 7, and 8 of the Van Acker First
Move to approve.
Edition.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Went, seconded by Alderman O'Brien. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Thank
We are
you.
on to our informationals. Spring yard waste collection waiver of sticker requirement.
Okay, I'll bring this one back for Public Works. This is a program that recently, in the last several years, as far as the history that I understand, we brought to council to get approval to waive fees for the first 2 weeks of yard waste collection in the spring. I don't know when it started, how it got started, but it has been something that comes up on our calendar annually, and we do bring it forward.
Question, Mr. Went.
Yeah, and maybe Alderman Waldron would be able to answer this because maybe your memory's better on it than me. I think that this originally started was we had a couple of years in which snow came when we were still collecting. And so we wound up getting frozen out. We wound up with a large amount of leaves that
Still around this.
were still around. Do we feel like that's the condition this year?
Staff
Don't
does
answer.
not feel it's that
Yeah.
condition, and-
Okay.
and we do collect yard waste bags in the fall during our leaf collection without stickers, so we do provide the service in the fall. But yeah, we were asked to bring this back. Yeah, we feel generally when we have a good year of leaf collection that this is an additional service that we're providing that maybe is not necessary, but we have been asked to bring it back. And whatever council decides, I guess staff is asking that we do it consistently and not have to bring it back every year, because it just whatever we decide to do, we would prefer to plan to do.
You got a question? All right,
I
I
just
saw
wanna
Mr.
make a
Went's
comment.
hand first.
Okay.
Oh, I guess in my estimation, I think that it was only for those years of unusual situations where the snow came while the leaf pickup was still happening. So I don't think I'd be in support of it in this year. And then maybe moving forward, it'd just be come back from you guys if you felt, hey, we weren't able to make our runs because of an early snow.
Mr.
It's
O'Brien.
supposed to be better for the environment to leave those leaves on your yard anyway. At least that's what I tell
Yeah.
my wife.
Mulch 'em up.
Environmental.
Do you have, do we have a consensus to share with Mr. Fulenbeck or an opinion further on this?
I'm curious have we had recent years when we've not done the free stickers? Or, and what I'm really trying to get at is
Is there an expectation?
is there an expectation, thank you, of the free stickers?
I'm sure we will definitely receive calls asking when the free sticker is going to be in the spring, but they have good memories.
How much does it cost?
10,000 maybe max is the revenue we give up on it.
They
Possibly.
could do a lot with 10,000.
Yes.
Being good.
Mr. Williams.
You know, I think the neighborhood groups, it's a kind of a kickoff to the spring and the cleanup, and that everybody gets out and they're like, if we get it done these 2 weeks and get the yard cleaned up, it gets the city looking better. And I mean, do we need to shake them down for 2 more weeks of stickers? You know, if people just want to clean stuff. I just say we don't have to. I just think whether it's 1 week or 2 weeks, just to give people the pass to help clean up the city, that would be a positive thing. I don't think we need the revenue.
Our collection will start beginning of April. That's when we start the collection of leaf or yard bags again, yard waste.
So what's your understanding of what the opinion of this council is?
That's exactly what my understanding was expected to be.
It's about expectations, Mayor.
It's been I know it's been argued on both sides. every year it's been brought back. It's a close vote.
I'll make a motion to go for 2 weeks of free stickers.
I'll second that.
Motion by Alderman O'Brien, seconded by Alderman Moyer.
Young Froggy.
Discussion.
Here we
Yes,
go.
Mr. Waldron.
This is your fault. I wasn't gonna say a word, was I, James? Nobody collects leaves like the city of Moline. Yes, it would be nice to do it again for another 2 weeks, but it is redundant. We're the only community that vacuums leaves. You can put your leaves out in the fall in a bag if you don't want to wait for that vacuum, and we'll pick them up for free. We vacuum up those leaves, and now in the spring you want to reduce revenue, which we're always looking for revenue, by another $10,000 to throw them another bone. I just said, enough. We picked every leaf up in the fall. I agree with Alderman Wendt. If there are special years where we've sucked ice and snow, come back to us and say, listen, I really think we may need that 2 weeks. This is the classic year here. We got done through the parks, we got done everywhere. I cannot support that motion, nor have I ever.
Mr. Wendt.
And I concur, and you wind up in a weird way incentivizing not picking up and not doing it in the fall. Be like, oh well, then I always got the chance in the spring. I just think that having a clear, say, what we do is we pick these up in the fall. We do a great job of it. We bend over backwards compared to any other community anywhere near here. I think there's only like 3 places.
3 places in Illinois vacuum leaves.
That vacuum leaves, and we're one of them. And so I'm not going to support this.
Okay. Any further comments, Mr. Schmidt?
I tend to support it, though I wonder if we could. I wonder if we could run for a shorter period of time, because I also understand when the staff is saying, "Hey, we just want it to be consistent." Either it's always no or it's always yes. That's my fear of just continually going back and forth on it. And I think it also, I think this incentivizes people to get up and do it. And I know I personally usually think, oh, I'll go get some bags, I'll fill them up. I don't get it out and done in time, and I end up buying stickers anyway. But I got incentivized to actually get out and do that work, and I think there's an overall benefit to how it benefits the whole city. And the associations, I think, is a really great point. And
Mr. Williams.
As a member of the Keep the Moline Beautiful Committee.
Yes, you are welcome.
Not only is this a catalyst to get the leaves up, but the bottles and the cans and the things that collect on the curb and the boulevards. I just think if we can't give the citizens their money back for at least 1 week, then maybe we've got other issues. I would support this.
Thank you. Mr. Wendt.
So I'll support an amendment to the motion to make it for 1 week.
I have stickers for you, Alderman Malden.
Is there a second to this amendment?
I just,
I'll second.
I just have
Okay.
a comment though.
But hang on, we'll get there. I gotta try to do it in the right order. So we have an amendment to the motion, and it's by Alderman Wendt. It's been seconded by Alderman Schmidt.
Thank you.
So we're now just discussing doing it for a week. Any discussion on that? Here, then we need to vote on that amendment. All in favor of moving it to a 1 week period?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
I think it was 3.
It was 3 as a choir.
Yeah, so that motion fails. So we're back to the original, which is a 2 week free period. Mr. O'Brien.
Just a personal note, I'm like the Saudi Arabia of leaves and acorns, and I don't have any curbside. I get no leaf vacuum, so it's not even worth it. Those of you that have been in my house, there's no way for the vacuums to get up there. But I support this because I think it does encourage people to clean up their yards.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wendt,
Nay.
Timian,
Nay.
Moyer,
This is for the 2 weeks, right?
This
Say
is-
aye.
Yeah.
All right. I wanna
Alderman
make sure I get that
O'Brien,
right.
Aye.
Waldron,
Big surprise, nay.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
I've got 4 ayes, 3 nays.
The ayes carry it.
There you go, 2 for you.
That motion passes.
Could I get a clarification? Bring this back
Yes.
next
Yeah,
spring?
no. Never bring it back again.
It's a okay, sorry. we're having a good time, which is awesome. We still have a lot to do. I believe it's, if necessary, bring it back.
Okay.
But
Is
we
that
have
your
a bad
understanding,
winter
everyone?
that runs into April.
Well, that's my understanding, but I don't think that the people who voted for it, they probably say just keep it every year.
I believe that the understanding is we're doing it every year.
Yes, correct. And
Yeah.
so only bring questions back to us if necessary.
But please, let's talk about it next year.
Yeah.
It's never coming back.
Okay, we are on to you, Ms.
Joke.
Christopoulos, amending Chapter 1, General Provisions, and Chapter 2, Administration.
Thank you. As you know, staff was charged with undertaking code updates from chapter 1 to 36. We have started with 1 and 2. What you see here, what you have received, is what we call updates, clarifications, elimination of redundant or updated language with a couple of exceptions. First of all, Amy Saunders is here. She has been a key player in completing these. We would not have been able to do it without Amy's eye for detail. Naturally, the clerk has also been very instrumental, as well as other department heads. It really has been a group project. I would like to not go through every single change because we will be here past midnight. I would like to just hit the highlights, and then if we have questions, we are here to answer those. So starting with chapter 1, the highlights of the changes are to change the public service work to limit it to juvenile ordinance violations. This was recommended by John Fox and Chief Galt. We eliminated credit or incarceration because we don't incarcerate. We updated enforcement of ordinances, institutional service, by again eliminating practices that don't exist anymore. And then the remainder of this chapter is really just general updates to reconcile changes in statute, references, and other grammatical changes. So are there questions on chapter 1?
Mr. Schmidt.
This is a short one that just is just trying to understand. So we don't incarcerate. I understand that, but if our police department is putting forth does that mean none of the crimes for which a person is incarcerated are coming from the code of ordinances? Those would be coming from county or state or federal law. I see Chief nodding. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, that's what I figured, but I wanted to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nguyen.
Is a couple of things. The $750, is that by state statute? Is that the limitation?
No, that's just by
What have other, because that is, it's just a kind of an odd number that,
it's kind of uncommon.
oh, it's common that most communities that you work with is 750 is the number. The other thing, the gender definition, is that something that in today's world should probably be maybe looked at and updated? Oh, it's number 8 on the first page under 101 rules, constructions, and definitions. I mean, I don't.
Even something simple like any pronoun shall be.
Oh, applied to both.
I mean,
You are right.
yeah.
We need to,
Yeah, I figured in today's world that probably should have been something. The sidewalk, with us moving forward with bike paths and multi-use paths and those sorts of things, that should probably be expanded, or even if the definition of sidewalk, because it talks about anything adjacent to the property between the curb line and the property. Well, sometimes they're sidewalks, sometimes they're multi-use, sometimes they're bike paths, unless we're just going to call them all sidewalks. But I think that then may run into some other issues that we
Pedestrian facilities.
wind up doing. Well, and it gets to a thing that I'm hoping that we'll eventually discuss about the requirement of our community to shovel an entire bike path versus 4 feet of a sidewalk area or something. But
Would it be better to add a definition for multi-use path?
I don't know. That's
Because they are
Something for you to
somewhat
look
different.
at.
yeah, deferring to staff, but that is something like right now they're all sidewalks and they're not.
They're not.
Yeah.
Anything else from the council on chapter 1? And because there is an extended period of time of review, I think legal counsel would appreciate any, if you think of something after this meeting, right? Please reach out to them. Feel free to copy it, Administrator Vitas and myself if you feel like it. Mr. Moore.
Just curious, what is the timeline for bringing this back for actual to implement it?
so I believe that it will be on the 15th.
The 29th, it'll go to Cow and then go through the process.
So we have
Correct.
about 3 more weeks to review it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
because it's large.
Yeah.
It's very
And we're front loaded with large chapters and then it tapers a little.
Wait till you get to 34 and 35.
We only had a day to
Mr.
look at
West
this.
Next month.
Yeah. To that point, I think that moving forward, it would be appropriate that if you guys are putting together drafts or whatever, that we get this earlier in the process. I mean, to get it on Friday, I mean, our packet was 623 pages this week, and I read 623 pages this weekend, and my wife's not talking to me now, but if we've got time in advance, please, this is, I mean, I'm not sure that everyone had the opportunity to read all, Alderman Brown, no, 108 pages of this portion of it. If we have the opportunity, please get this to us sooner. I mean, it's, if we really want to review this and this to be useful.
Are we on to chapter 2?
Yeah.
Oh, one other question.
one other
Reinstatement fees, are they always $200? Or
Yeah.
it is $200 for all licenses, no matter what they are?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, chapter 2.
So chapter 2, the really good.
Oh, yeah.
The highlights include amending alderman to alderperson. We have updated the code to reflect on budget practices. We have, as you may have noticed, we have altered the definition of the number of meetings for cow and goose. And what we did was that our goal was to reflect current practice. So we currently have 2 council meetings and then a round table. to codify that, but still give you flexibility to have more meetings. If the roundtable doesn't work out, for instance, or next year you want to do something different. So we wrote this to be no less than two meetings at which business occurs. Or actually,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Two cows,
You're
two
The
correct.
point
councils.
was it's
You're
no
right.
less than two,
Yeah,
so we
no
can't,
less
yeah.
than two.
So you can do 3 or 4.
So you can have three, God help us with
I hope not.
Now,
The 620 pages, maybe it should be.
we did a survey of other communities in case you feel a little bit concerned about maybe going down to 2 meetings. And we found that some of your neighbors, such as Rock Island and East Moline and Geneseo and Moline and Silvis, all have 2 meetings a month. Decatur has 2 meetings unless there are 5 Mondays in a month, and then we have 3. Bloomington has 2 council meetings and 1 cow meeting. Moline has 2 meetings a month. So even at 2, you are very consistent with other communities. We also in 2-2212, which is the provision which restricts council members to speaking twice at a meeting or on an issue reserve. So we altered that to speaking twice at council. And so that, of course, preserves your ability to have free-flowing conversation at the cow, which is generally where you really do your discussion. 2-3103, which was the language, we eliminated on the recommendation of your bond counsel because it simply reflected statute. And as statutes change from time to time, and we had no unique language, they recommended that we just remove that. Similarly, in 3119, which was the gift ban act, we eliminated that because that statute was repealed and incorporated into the ethics act. So that was an update as well. Some antiquated language that was eliminated can be found in 3201, which allowed the mayor to release prisoners.
You want to get rid of
Don't
that?
exist.
Why would you want to get rid of that?
And similarly, to call out the militia and conscript males over 18.
Yikes.
That meant I know.
You never know.
Yeah, well.
You see what happened in Ukraine.
Yeah. That's what I was reading it while I was watching that.
Then we get into some other language, which is really a good update, beginning in 3400, where we redefined the public works director position. We also included definitions and descriptions for the director of engineering and the director of utilities. We changed the title of the finance director to reflect its current title. We, in 4100, we added three commissions, which now exist in New York City towns. And to, what a day to forget my last names.
Do you know cheaters?
26111. You remove that long chart of penalties. Because, well, first of all, because it was recommended by our codifier, your agreement, and because those penalties for code violations actually are within each code provision to which they apply.
Are they all in there?
Yes.
Every single one.
And that is why Amy is so good at this cost checking everything. Additionally, we removed the old, I think it was called crisis. Yes.
Which doesn't exist anymore.
Yes, but it is still
It's
relevant.
crazy.
So we eliminated that and inserted our current procedure under municipal.
When did municipes come into effect?
Well, before Amy started.
Oh, I was gonna say it was before I was in. Yeah.
Or I.
80,
I mean, there's
early
just-
90s.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I thought it's
So,
been
you know,
forever.
yours do. And then in that process, we also eliminated all language about impounding vehicles and those actions which again we just don't do anymore. And that is the very abbreviated version of our highlights to chapter 2 changes. Now, as you even cursory look, will reveal a number of other changes. We changed city attorney to corporation counsel. There's about 50 or so changes. We cleaned up old statute citations. We renumbered and that was broken down. So all of those other changes I don't mention, you can see it as you browse through. Janine and Amy, did I miss anything big?
No. Yeah, I think that's pretty
Okay.
comprehensive from what I knew of what you have done, so. Do we have questions, comments?
I just had one question. The municipal year, I'm just kind of curious as to either why it was incorrect, why it was changed, I'm assuming it was in May to align with elections. Yeah, it's just section 21102.
You're
It changed from May to January. So I'm just kind of more curious than anything else.
I wasn't here when that change happened, but I can tell you that a lot of local governments use May 1 in Illinois, but a lot of local governments decided they wanted to have it coincide with the calendar year. And they made that change, as opposed to, let's say, the October 1 day, which is the federal fiscal year. Some municipalities choose that. But it's either May 1 or January 1. And for accounting purposes, it doesn't really matter, for auditing purposes, but it does coincide with like the release of federal dollars.
But just in there, in the ordinance, there's one that talks about what our fiscal calendar year is, and then there's another thing about our municipal calendar year. And that may be what you're talking about, is that those are codified as two different things, and they were at two different times of the year. And so that, I think that's your question.
I mean, okay. If they're both equally valid and it doesn't really have any consequences, it's kind of.
Do you have other communities that had it different?
No.
Yeah, I was.
I've never seen
Trying
it
to
like
be
that.
more like.
That's what I was like,
I have no idea why we do that.
Okay, Mr. Schmidt, you had something.
Yeah, I have a few. I'm happy to do them one at a time or just roll right through. There's three. The first one is, and this came up in part looking at tonight's agenda and how this has fallen a couple times, but when we have public hearings, we could do it prior to the council, but it's often hours after the posted time. And I was wondering if that was something we could clean up so that it actually happens at its posted time. It would happen prior to a committee of the whole meeting. So even tonight we have one, well, tonight's might not have worked because I think we had to vote first, but usually we would have voted prior, and that public hearing is scheduled for 6, but we might not get to it until 7:30. I can also be told that's not appropriate for cleanup, but
So at the time that the staff would publish that, they wouldn't know what the agenda was going to look like. And so typically they would put 6 o'clock. It can't happen any earlier than 6 o'clock, but typically does happen later. In a case of like this evening, we needed to go through COW before we can have a public hearing, and then it goes to council. So what Margaret and I had talked about is kind of asking all of our departments to publish 6 o'clock or immediately following the committee of the whole meeting. That way,
That's clear.
I guess I'd like to
understand sometimes people will be waiting, but that
I like to see us clean it up to just do at the published time, we do that event. I recognize tonight would have been impossible to do that. And that we would have had to publish it differently, that this case was different. But on others, we could have done it before the committee of the whole because we'd already had that vote.
but we just don't know at the time that we publish it whether or not we're going to have that.
Well, but if we always say it's at 6 o'clock and when we have a public hearing, we do it first thing, it eliminates the question. Because otherwise we are publishing a time that says we're going to have this at this time, and we're doing it much later.
And we could change our code. Amy, doesn't it say somewhere that it takes place after the committee of the whole? We'll have to look at that. Somewhere in chapter 2 it does
It
address
says
that.
immediately following the Pledge of Allegiance
of the council.
Oh, okay.
I read it recently.
Yeah.
And I would like to see that change, and I'm curious. Yeah, here's how everyone else feels.
Yeah.
Mr. Went.
Well, and I had suggested at one point, before we had outside counsel, to that point exactly, where we would basically, you could start actually the council meeting first, do the Pledge of Allegiance, do the public hearing, then adjourn it to a time certain, do the cow in between, and then come back to the council. Because I agreed with you. I mean, if we wind up doing a budget hearing or something like that, and people show up, and then they've got to sit here for 2 hours before we eventually get to the public hearing, we're not actually really doing what we're supposed to be doing.
All right, so that you guys will double check that with the sentiments from this council that we want to try to do public hearings as close to the start of a meeting to facilitate the public as possible.
Come back with different.
And people sit
Yeah.
around for hours.
Okay. Anything further?
I need
Yes,
2 more.
Mr. Schmidt.
The changing of the titles to alderpersons, I believe that title is overly clunky, and while I think changing it is appropriate and should be something we do, I think we should look to something that is more neutral, truthfully, in that either using counselor or council member, that is much simpler. There also could be trustee, commissioner, or others. I don't like them as much, but I'd like to see us talk about something that's more truly neutral.
I would be concerned that the words like trustee and commissioner would reflect a different style of government.
Yeah, correct.
And
Now
y'all,
we could look at council member and,
Well,
The
this
state-
was
and I
a,
did some.
This was a statute change.
yeah, it was a change in
okay.
statute recently
Okay,
that said
let's-
that we had to.
Let's make sure we're just one at a time, even though we have a lot of information. So, yeah, it's different if it's a statutory change.
It is. Now, I will check to see whether other words can replace other person and notify all of you, if that could be a consideration for you. But the statute clearly states that we can no longer use aldermen, which, actually, fortunately, you are all aldermen, currently, but yes, that needs to be changed. The statute, I believe, reflects older person, but I'll double check if
That's
there's an alternative.
Thank you. You had a third?
Yes.
Okay.
I recently learned that I'm a designated conservator of the peace.
Yeah,
in reading the
congratulations.
ordinance. Except when I tried to Google that and look that up, are there actual requirements that come with that from the state that are just not enforced? Because I found something that suggested that I have mandatory firearms training I'm supposed to complete. All alder persons. And I just was quite curious as to how that works, or if that is still an antiquated piece. I saw many articles about the city of Chicago actually excusing their own alderpersons from mandatory firearms training. It struck me as interesting, but it.
Usually elected officials want
Badges and guns.
No stinking badges.
We don't need no stinking badges.
Okay, so Ms.
Okay.
Kostopoulos, will you just check into that particular item? Thank you. There was someone over here that had a question, comment?
I'll do the firearms training if we need to.
Did you have some, Mr.
Yeah,
Wentz?
yeah, I had a couple. And I can send these to you. There was a number of places we're switching from appropriations to budget, but there's still a number of places where appropriations is still utilized throughout the thing. Same with corporate authorities. Like sometimes it talks to us about this as city council. Sometimes it's talk about corporate authorities. I didn't know if the difference in the use of those is one means 8, and then the mayor, and then corporate authority means all 9, or, I mean, as you read through it, and then there talks about certain votes, and it's like, well, does that mean that only 8 of us, or does that, for that one, it's actually all 9, or those sorts of things. And so if we could get some clarification on that. Throughout this, whenever they're talking about publications and all of those things, there's no mention of the requirement to put it online or on our website or anything like that. I think that those all should be codified that we're doing that. I mean, I do appreciate that if we're calling a meeting that the police chief doesn't have to come to our house and make us go. And this came up today, actually. A resident asked me, said, okay, that the newspaper pretty much doesn't cover us anymore unless we send out a press release. And so the question was, like, how do I know what is happening at a council meeting unless I watch the video or you come in and you tell me what's going on? And so one of the things that some communities do, and I think even some of our different commissions and everything, they actually publish the minutes that are going to be approved along with the agenda.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it says that it's a draft or whatever, because otherwise, those don't get like published for like, it could be 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month before they wind up getting actually published for people to read. So I think that would be great if those were, as soon as they're done, uploaded as a draft or something. I know we can see them, but that really doesn't help the public know what happened at the last meeting. And that would be great if we did. I think so, because it's one of those things where if we just say, hey, we kind of want it, and while Jean's here, it gets done, and then the new person comes in and things fall off.
So if we could just get some consensus from the council, that seems like a reasonable and a reasonably executed
Yeah.
request.
Yeah, no more on you, just when you get it, just.
No,
yeah.
no, that's
Yeah.
fine.
There's a couple of things that we kind of went over, and I guess this gets to Bob, but they have, I guess, real world applications and stuff. There's quite a few pretty dramatic changes in the structure of the governance of this, how the city is set up. I mean, like engineering becomes its own director.
Right.
We had voted to, and I think this, we talked right before here about the one-stop shop, but
Right.
we had some real concerns that anybody who wanted to come and do a development or whatever, they had to go to Public Works and come to zoning here. And so we had voted as a council, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something, to move the building under economic development. So at least there was one place to go. Now, is this like a two-step process?
Yes.
You're now taking them, and I don't know if they ever actually got over here. They're staying over there, and now we're going to put economic development over there too. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, if you want, I can speak to that, but yes, it is a two-step process, and at this point, the longer-term plan, and this is going to be discussed in more detail when we talk about the one-stop shop, is that the Community Economic Development Department would be consolidated over at the Public Works facility, and that's where the one-stop shop is going to end up being recommended to be placed, because it displaces the fewest number of people who need to physically be present and working together at one location. And then when that does take place, then we would move finance back to the City Hall, where Community Economic Development is. This becomes the administrative center. So you'd have legal and HR and the mayor and executive and council here. I missed somebody. I did miss somebody. I know.
HR?
HR. I say
You said
HR.
that.
All
You're
right.
good.
I got it.
You got it all.
So that is kind of in the longer term plan, is to move that here and then have those operational departments such as engineering, public works, community and economic development, the building department, they would all be together in that one service center. And then that way there would be processes that would be put in place. We're working on those now. We have no process. So we are retooling. We are retooling slowly, methodically, and sometimes we're doing it just because we have to, right? I mean, we stop what we're doing to do things that you don't even know we're doing because we have to get these things done, and then we report them to you. So we are working on a development review process, which will start to begin to set the stage for how development occurs, not only with developers, but even with homeowners.
So more to come on that on the 15th.
Yes, a lot
Back
more.
to chapter 2.
Yeah.
Any further questions, Mr. Warren?
There's a lot of little things. I'll send you guys an email with.
That'd
That's
be
great.
great.
Just
That'd
copy
be great.
Mr. Vitas for sure. Mr. Moyer.
Thank you. Just one quick comment. You talk about having the 2 council meetings and then the working session that we're going to do. Will that still allow us to do business if we need to?
Yeah,
So it's not eliminating that. We're just
no,
okay.
And we can always call a special meeting if we have to get to something. That is preserved with 48 hours notice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Warren.
But to that point, and I talked with Bob right before this meeting about this. When we had kind of gone to these 2 meetings with a work session or roundtable or whatever we're going to call it in the middle, previously we did allow for, like, if we had something that was on the cow today, it was unanimously passed, it went through. We then at the roundtable, we did a council meeting, we passed it, we went through, because, and I know this month is very unique, but we've got a situation this month where if we don't allow any business on the 15th, we're going to go from the 1st to the 29th between meetings and actions and those sorts of things. So I really think that I understand why you don't want us to have an hour and a half meeting discussing things like this and then trying to do a roundtable.
Right.
But clearly, I think that anything that was unanimous that no alderman wants to pull off, that it is just going to be a vote and funnel through, or if there winds up being something super time sensitive, like
Urgent.
the Silvis thing or something like that, that we do it, we just standardize. And if it winds up being nothing on it, but we just always have that opportunity
That's
to,
fine.
to add
We,
something.
well, those of us putting those agendas together will keep that in mind,
Yeah.
that you've reiterated that request or concern.
Yeah, because that's right. Just so that we just have that flexibility. Just
Got it. Anything further before you email anything? That's fine. Thank you so much. We, next up on our agenda is public comment, and actually, speaking of the public, Mr. Harrell is here. I wasn't sure if you were here just to hear comment or if you wanted to say anything, but I think I will take this moment to make the public comment that is relevant to Mr. Harrell's interest, and that is that we want to recognize jointly the City of Moline and Visit Quad Cities, Mrs. Patty Viverito, Senior Associate Commissioner of the Missouri Valley Conference. I also think, just like our previous proclamation, that doing this on the first day of Women's History Month is quite poignant and appropriate. So, little background. In the 2022 Missouri Valley Conference Women's Tournament will mark the 14th consecutive season in its 40-year history that the event will take place at a neutral site. Visit Quad Cities, the Tax Slayer Center, and the City of Moline serve as hosts of this signature Quad Cities event known as Hoops in the Heartland. This year's tournament will mark the 7th consecutive year that the tournament will be played at the Tax Slayer Center. The tournament drives a positive economic impact for the community, highlights our destination, improves our quality of life, and is a unique opportunity for the region to host a postseason collegiate basketball event at one of our most important regional assets, the Tax Slayer Center. Mrs. Patty Viverito has a long and storied career, which I'm sure we can get you access to the major details, but I'll give you, as is our practice tonight, the highlights. She's been a fixture of the tournament and one of collegiate athletics' most influential leaders. She has helped lead the conference to excellence and continues to be one of the Quad Cities' most important business partners. Patty Viverito is in her 30th season as a Senior Associate Commissioner at the Missouri Valley Conference and is in her 36th year directing the Missouri Valley Football Conference as its commissioner. She was named the Missouri Valley Football's first commissioner in September of 1985. At the Valley, Viverito's responsibilities have transitioned into working largely in an advisory capacity with the new commissioner. She currently serves as the FCS's commissioner's representative on the NCAA Division I Council and vice chair of the NCAA Division I Football Oversight Committee. And as I mentioned, she has a very distinguished career in sports leadership. In 1996, Viverito was recognized for her contributions to collegiate athletics when she was selected as the NACWAA, or National Association of Collegiate Women Athletic Administrators, Administrator of the Year. In addition, she's received Professional Service Achievement Alumni Awards from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst and Northern Illinois University. So we are very pleased to honor her today. And thank you for bringing this very accomplished woman to our attention, and we are happy to support this Hoops in the Heartland and glad that it is here. Mr. Harrell.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of council, I'm fighting a little bit, not a cold. I'm fully vaxxed, boosted, the whole thing. I was coaching my daughter's basketball game. I got a little vocal, so I lost my voice. So we all know how that goes in youth sports. By the way, the Storm was up 2-0 before I left to come over here. So thank you for that. Ms. Viverito is a fixture in collegiate athletics, and we're being very cautious not to say that this is her last year and that she's retiring. But there's some new leadership at the conference. Commissioner Jackson, who will be here in his capacity as commissioner for the first time ever, probably the last year that Patty will be working in her capacity at the tournament. So we wanted to do something to recognize her. We're so grateful for the City of Moline for doing that. She has been an incredible partner. This is also the 50th anniversary of Title IX. So if you go back and look at her 36-year career, probably one of the most influential women leaders in all of sports and certainly collegiate athletics. We are going to be recognizing her throughout the tournament, the conference office, as well as Visit Quad Cities. And then on March the 10th, next Thursday, we'll be hosting a VIP function at Metro. I think we invited council to attend that. And I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but we will be making a very special announcement during that time in Patty's honor. Also, last thing to note, I know you get a healthy agenda. This will be the very first time in the history of the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament, the title game, that will be broadcast on national television. So it's never been on national TV. It's been streamed, it's been casted, but it will be on ESPNU. So great coverage for Moline, great for the Quad Cities, and certainly a phenomenal opportunity to expand our platform. So thank you so much for everything that you do. We're looking forward to next week. They will roll in March 8th. Scott and his team are prepared, and we're looking forward to a wonderful tournament. So thank you so much. Appreciate your
Thank
support.
you.
Thank you.
Go Drake Bulldogs.
All right, we are up to our public hearing for annexation Van Acker's first edition subdivision lots 6, 7, and 8. Do you have any official language for me to open? So I will open that hearing. Are there any comments?
Right here,
Yes, Mr. Foley,
representing the city and the
representing the
petitioner.
city.
I don't see anybody here that looks like they're going to testify for this because it's a voluntary annexation, so there's probably no issues at all. I got an email from Mr. Christopher Bowling from CKBP, the owner of the potentially annexed property. He says, hello, I have personally reviewed the development and annexation agreement and did not see any issue or conflict. Unfortunately, I was unable to schedule my attorney to be present at the council meeting on short notice. My broker, John Corellis, was also unavailable. I hope this email is enough to confirm that initially I do not have any issue, and the review from my attorney will be complete in the next few days. I will also be back in the Quad Cities tomorrow and can be available for anything that is necessary. I will reach out this week to make arrangements for my requirement of the 5% security as part of the agreement. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me with any questions or concerns. Thank you. It's Mr. Bolton.
Thank you very much.
That's about all I have on this, and we have some more related to this coming up further down the agenda. I'm here for any questions if anybody has any.
Anything from the council?
And there should be a map sheet on your table this evening
Yes.
that shows you
Thank you.
where we are talking about.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything from council? Hearing none, are there any, anyone to speak in opposition or affirming? No, then I will close this public hearing. And that's all that's, yes?
Yeah, well, to the point, are we meeting our code by doing it now?
You can do it after.
Yeah,
We are. Mhm.
Yeah.
so it can't be earlier than, because of the pledge.
I think that it says that.
Oh, Lord.
Well,
That specifically
it-
says it because I was reading it today. It states if it cannot happen at that. No, I don't remember. I don't believe the pledge was done as a prerequisite, but it was that if the committee had started or the council meeting had started, you would do that, then move over.
Madam Council.
A public hearing is scheduled and advertised. The city council shall automatically be recessed after the Pledge of Allegiance so that the public hearing may be held. Sure, it is 2207 order of business. Yeah, it just says, if a public hearing is scheduled and advertised, said council meeting shall automatically be recessed after the Pledge of Allegiance so that said public hearing may be held, and the council meeting shall automatically reconvene
at the close of said public hearing. Any public hearing conducted by the city council shall conform with the least restrictive but legally sufficient of the requirements provided under federal and state law as applicable, blah, blah, blah.
So I interpret this that, it can happen no later than after the pledge. But it
yes.
could be posted and held prior to.
I mean, I hate to disagree, but it says the meeting shall automatically be recessed after the Pledge of Allegiance. And under Chapter 1, it says shall means
So
it has to
I have
happen.
a solution. We're going to recess the cow. We're hold the public hearing once again, or unless council can recommend any sort of
We can do the public hearing
adoption of
again after the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right. That's
Why don't we
what I'm
just do
saying.
that?
That's what I'm saying. We'll recess the cow, start the council meeting.
No. Let's just finish the cow.
We can
Go.
adjourn
The cow is over.
Yeah.
No, I haven't called this council meeting to order. Oh,
In the process, the cow would end.
Yeah.
what is your recommendation?
I recommend you just.
But yeah.
Got it. That is what we will do. So I will now call the council meeting to order at 8 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
When you
That's
get,
your stretch.
all
So
you get.
for another 2 hours? Yeah.
Okay, so now is when we do our public hearing on the annexation of Van Acker's First Edition subdivision lots 6, 7, and 8. Commentary, please, Mr. Foley.
Hello, Mayor and Alder people. It's nice to be back.
I would be an alder.
I've been working on this project for almost as long as Bob. And nobody's here to testify that I can see, but I do have a statement that was sent to me by email this afternoon at 7:17. Excuse me, that's 17:17 or 5:17. From Mr. Christopher Bowling. He's the owner of the property, which is CK BP LLC. And he says, hello, I have personally reviewed the development and annexation agreement and do not see any issue or conflict. Unfortunately, I was unable to schedule my attorney to be present at the council meeting on short notice. My broker, John Corellis, also was unavailable. I hope this email is enough to confirm that initially I do not have any issue and the review from my attorney will be completed in the next few days. I will also be back in the Quad Cities tomorrow and can be available for anything that is necessary. I will reach out this week to make arrangements for my requirement of the 5% security as part of the agreement. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me with any questions or concerns. Thank you. That concludes the statement. I am available for any questions if there are any.
I'd just like to make a comment as long as we're doing this again. Albert Van Acker used to be my landlord of Albert Van Acker Edition. I used to live at 4308 7th Street.
Oh, really?
So to add something new, since we're doing it twice. So if you're fast forwarding through this,
Thank you very much.
there you go.
Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you.
All right, I don't hear anyone, no one else is here to make comment. Then we will close this public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Invocation, Mr. Went?
I think we are.
Sorry, Lord. Yeah.
That'd be right.
Invocation?
Yeah, we already did the moment of
Okay.
silence. So.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams,
Present.
Macias, Alderman Went,
Present.
Timian,
Present.
Moyer,
Present.
O'Brien,
Present.
Waldron,
Present.
Schmidt.
Present.
Your Honor, I request approval of Committee of the Whole Council and Executive Session Minutes of February 15th, 2022, and appointments made during Committee of the Whole on March 1st, 2022. Resolutions. Council Bill 1028-2022, resolution authorizing approval of change order number 1 and final with McClintock Trucking and Excavating for project number 1342, utilities at 18th Street B and Avenue of the Cities for the amount of $115,660.40. Council Bill 1029-2022, a resolution authorizing approval of the final change order with Centennial Contractors of the Quad Cities Incorporated for project number 1353, 2021 patching program, the amount of $829,979.56. Council Bill 1030-2022, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to an agreement with Griffin Floor Crafters Incorporated for Moline Police Department flooring replacement for the amount of $100,241. Council Bill 1031-2022, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a city artwork licensing agreement between the City of Moline and Bluffs Neighborhood Association to allow the neighborhood association to commission artists on behalf of the city to paint artwork on city-owned planters. Council Bill 1032-2022, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a professional services agreement with Strand Associates Incorporated for engineering, design, and bidding related services for modifications to excess flow clarifiers at South Slope Wastewater Treatment Plant in the amount of $74,685. Council Bill 1033-2022, a resolution authorizing a variance to Chapter 34, Water and Sewers, Section 2101, application for water service connections of the Moline Code of Ordinances, waiving the requirement at this time that 2630 45th Street be required to extend a public water main across the frontage of said property, granting the petitioner and property owner permission to make a service line connection to the public main at the north property line of said property until such time as water main is extended by others across the frontage, and as a condition of approval, requiring the petitioner, property owner, and successors and assigns to agree to voluntarily provide 20 feet of right-of-way along west property frontage for such extension and connection to the water main at such time as the water main is so extended, and pay at that time the equitable share of such public main extension attributable to said property, and to record these obligations against the property. Council Bill 1034-2022, resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a professional services agreement with Train Building Services for replacement of the HVAC operating system at the water treatment plant, and authorizing the director of utilities to execute any necessary documents for the purchase of said replacement in the amount of $97,195. Council Bill 1035-2022, a resolution authorizing the Director of Utilities to create and manage a financial assistance program for drainage improvements to private property and appropriating $50,000 in stormwater enterprise funds to be used for this program in the 2022 budget year. Council Bill 1036-2022, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to an intergovernmental agreement with the Moline Coal Valley School District Number 40, establishing an internship program. Council Bill 1037-2022, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a contract with Ostrom Painting and Sandblasting Incorporated for project number 1378, 2022 pavement marking program for the amount of $217,550. Council Bill 1039-2022, resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a contract with Centennial Contractors of the Quad Cities Incorporated for project number 1379, 2022 joint and crack sealing program for an amount of $93,670. Did I read the right number?
That was 1038.
I'm sorry, thank you,
misspoke on the one
1038.
number. You had it.
Council Bill 1039-2022, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a contract with Walter D. Lott Incorporated for project number 1380, 2022 patching program for the amount of $1,391,379. Council Bill 1040-2022, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a contract with Langman Construction Incorporated for project number 1381, 2022 City-Owned Lots and Surface Maintenance Program for the amount of $433,193. Council Bill 1041-2022, resolution authorizing the approval of a resolution for maintenance under the Illinois Highway Code for Motor Fuel Tax, section number 22-00000-01 GM 2022 asphalt maintenance program for the amount of $150,000. Council Bill 1042-2022, a resolution authorizing the approval of resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code of Motor Fuel Tax, section 22-00284-00RP, 47th Street reconstruction for the amount of $497,952. Council Bill 1043-2022, a resolution authorizing the approval of a resolution for maintenance under the Illinois Highway Code for Motor Fuel Tax, section number 22-00000 GM 2022 asphalt program for the amount of $770,000. Council Bill 1044-2022, resolution authorizing the approval of a resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code for Motor Fuel Tax, section number 22-00285-00RP, 8th Avenue, 36th Street reconstruction for the amount of $355,000.
Your Honor, I move for approval of consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Alderman O'Brien, second by Alderman Waldron. Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Went?
Aye.
Timian?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays. And that motion passes. Non-consent agenda resolutions. Council Bill 1045-2022, resolution considering all rules and regulations of the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners of the City of Moline, Illinois, 2022, promulgated, proposed, adopted, or approved by such board on Exhibit A attached here to, approving same as an exercise of the city's home rule powers.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman O'Brien, seconded by Alderman Went. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Oops. Alderman Went?
Aye.
Timian?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, and that motion passes. Council Bill 1046-2022, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a surrounding property owner consent form, granting the city's consent for Class A liquor license to be issued for 2900 River Drive, Moline, Illinois.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Went, seconded by Alderman Timian. Discussion? I'll just say that I've spoken to this owner of this particular restaurant. It sounds like an amazing experience. Looking forward to seeing it in place. All right, hearing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Alderman Went?
Aye.
Timian?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, and that motion passes. Council Bill 1047-2022, a resolution accepting a deed of dedication from Chris Bowling, member manager of CKBP LLC, for a permanent utility and drainage easement south of 52nd Avenue to 4314 7th Street.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman O'Brien, seconded by Alderman Went. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Went?
Aye.
Timian?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Williams?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, and that motion passes. Council Bill 1048-2022, a resolution authorizing certain minutes and portions of minutes of executive sessions of the City Council to be maintained as confidential until further reviewed by the City Council, and authorizing the remainder of said executive session minutes referenced herein to be made available for public inspection.
Motion to approve 1048-2022.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Moyer, seconded by Alderman Williams. Discussion? Mr. Went.
This is pertaining to the new policy. Are we also bringing that policy specifically, or? Because I think that it wasn't that what your motion was, to bring the policy to the council?
In the form of resolution.
So that it was clear what what our policy was and who was in favor of it and who wasn't. Wasn't that what your motion was?
That was a request. I don't think that I am not held up on voting to this, but yes, we do. I would like us to codify the policy.
We'll go
Okay.
back and look at that, sorry. I
Could that
missed
be in section 1 or section 2? Just
Chapter 2,
chapter 2, I apologize.
is it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's codified or if it's a policy or if it's.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the best place for that is.
So the clerk will double check the minutes and what was requested, and we can come back with that. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Went.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, and that motion passes. Council Bill 1049-2022, resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to an agreement with Hutchison Engineering Incorporated for professional engineering services to prepare engineering plans, specifications, and bid documents for a water main extension connecting the city of Moline water system to the city of Silva's system in the amount of $107,378.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Timian, seconded by Alderman Went. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Went.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, and that motion passes. Council Bill 1050-2022, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to approve an annexation and development agreement between the city of Moline and CKBP LLC for the property located at 4314 7th Street.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Went, seconded by Alderman O'Brien. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Went.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, and that motion passes. First reading ordinances. Council Bill 3001-2022, an ordinance amending Chapter 34 Water and Sewers of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Section 34-2111, Service Pipe, repealing said section in its entirety, enacting in lieu thereof new section 34-2111, dealing with the same subject matter. Council Bill 3002-2022, an ordinance enlarging the corporate limits of the city of Moline by annexing thereto certain parcels of land in Rock Island County, Illinois, more particularly described as Van Acker's First Edition Subdivision Lot 6, PIN number 17-17-104-007, parcel number 0712366, Lot 7, PIN number 104-008, parcel number 0712367, Lot 8, PIN number 17-17-104-009, parcel number 0712368, 4314 7th Street, Moline, Illinois, 61265, all situated in northwest quarter of Section 17, Township 17 North, Range 1 west of the 4th Principal Meridian, South Moline Township, Rock Island County, Illinois. Council Bill 3003-2022, an ordinance amending Chapter 35 Zoning and Land Development of the Moline Code of Ordinances by enacting an amendment to the zoning map incorporated therein as Section 35-3103, CKBP LLC parcels in Van Acker's First Edition Subdivision, Lot 6, PIN number 17-17-104-007, parcel number 0712366, Lot 7, PIN number 17-17-104-008, parcel number 0712367, Lot 8, PIN number 17-17-104-009, parcel number 0712368, 4314 7th Street, Moline, Illinois, 61265, all situated in the northwest quarter of Section 17, Township 17 North, Range 1 west of the 4th Principal Meridian, South Moline Township, Rock Island County, Illinois. Council Bill 3004-2022, an ordinance amending Chapter 20 Motor Vehicles and Traffic of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Appendix 10 thereof, parking prohibited at any time by deleting 26th Street west side from the alley between 6th Avenue and 7th Avenue to 7th Avenue, and adding in lieu thereof 26th Street west side from 6th Avenue south a distance of 50 feet, and 26th Street west side from 7th Avenue north
a distance of 50 feet, and deleting 27th Street on both sides from 6th Avenue to 12th Avenue, and adding in lieu thereof 27th Street on both sides from 7th Avenue to 12th Avenue. And that is all I have this evening, Your Honor.
Okay. We are to miscellaneous business, and since we've been paying very close attention to our code, I believe in the order of business, the business of the mayor comes before the business of the council, and tonight I have important information for you, so I'm gonna follow the code in the order of business.
See what you started?
I did start that. I'm sorry.
So one very important bit of business, I've been in close conversation with our lobbyist, Mr. Matt Hughes, on several items. He has given me a document detailing which pieces of legislation are coming through that he's watching for us, varieties of those. Also have email confirmation just this evening that the land transfer legislation we are interested in because with IDOT has passed the House unanimously. So that's wonderful news. We'll continue on to the Senate. We also had some concerns. Mr. Wendt was following some news on TIF legislation, and there are multiple bills out there, and Mr. Hughes has looked at that, but also Corporate Counsel Ansel Glink has, and so that's the memo you have in front of you. I am happy to report, however, though, that David Silverman has updated us as of yesterday afternoon that one of the most concerning bills was Senate Bill 2298 that would radically alter how TIFs operate in Illinois has been referred to the Assignments Committee, and it's believed that that effectively kills the bill. So we are in the clear in terms of maintaining flexibility with our TIF situations. So I'm happy to give you those updates today. I also wanted to let you know that the State of the City address is slated for March 14th at 10 a.m. at the Spotlight Theater. We're doing something different this year. I'm inviting the traditional groups that are always invited and also opening it up to the public. And Spotlight Theater is one of our local businesses at the end of our potential arts kind of corridor, if we think about that option for a Heart of the Arts district. They also have small businesses featured inside at the market, and so we've constructed a morning of doors open at 9:30 for coffee. It's like your morning coffee break, right? Addresses at 10 a.m. And the market will be open at 10:30 for those visiting to go check out, buy things by local and near local artisans, etc.
So we project it'll be done by 10:30.
By 10:30, the official stuff, and then we have the space, I believe, booked until 11:30. They plan to be, have everything available to us. So it's a nice partnership with, believe, our staff has worked with my guidance to feature local businesses for the coffee and for the treats. So trying to focus on local as much as possible. So more information on that will go out to the public and the list of invitees very shortly, but I wanted you to be able to have that on your calendars. That is all I have. So now we can turn to the business of the council.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Mr. Wendt.
Thank you, Your Honor. As was reported a couple weeks ago, the Sunday hours at the library have been going very well received. I've talked with a number of residents that are really happy that it's happening. And to that end, I'd like to move that we direct staff to come back with a budget amendment to transfer $8,500 from the reserve fund to the library fund to fund Sunday hours from Memorial Day to Labor Day. It's already in the budget from Labor Day till the end of the year and from now to Memorial Day, but this would allow it for the entire year with the expectation that the library will come back with stats on
usage at budget time. So does the summer make sense? Is it just the fall? Is it just the spring? But I'd like to make that motion that we do that $8,500 so that we'll have Sunday hours throughout the summer.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Went, seconded by Alderman Waldron. Discussion? Mr. Schmidt?
So my biggest concern is if we'll be able to staff it, because I know currently we rely on volunteering. It is that we cannot have required overtime in that contract with the librarians, and so that's a lot easier to fill coming up to the regular part of the school year. But I'd just be concerned that we'd be able to do that, and I guess I would like to understand where we are at and understanding how that works and how that would play through.
Mr. Went?
Yeah, obviously if they can't, I did ask, Brian came back with, and I got the information from staff, there wasn't any indication that said, hey, if we do this, we're not going to be able to actually staff it. So, but yeah, certainly if they can't staff it, then it can't be open.
So proceeding with your motion does not
Well,
preclude us from just sticking with the Labor Day piece if they can't staff it. Is that correct understanding?
It still has to come back as a budget amendment for us to transfer.
Okay.
So I mean, this isn't the final vote. This is
There's time
directing
to
staff
figure out this information.
Time for the due diligence.
Okay, got it. Yeah, we need to do the due diligence on staffing. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Anything further?
We did some annexations tonight, and I know a few of us who were on council from before. There were like 59 properties that we were working towards annexing into the city that by ordinance were required to annex, but for whatever reason over the years, nobody ever did it. Back in like September of 2020, we sent out letters to a number of them, and then we just never heard. So if we could maybe by the 29th just get an update on where we are, because it was multi-phased. It was like 13 and then another 23 and then another 37 because they have to be contiguous or something like that.
That's Mr. Vitas.
Just a quick question. I mean, do you recall back in 2020, who was the lead person responsible for annexations?
Well, I mean, the report came in the minutes from JD. I think Chris Matthias was really doing the legwork on it. Is that what you recall?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the things that we want to do is we want to look at the entire annexation procedure, given what we just went through for just a single annexation of 3 lots. It was terrifying. So when I heard 60, I wanted to just, pull what hair was left out of the head. We have to refine this process so that it can just be streamlined.
Yeah.
And if you have that many and they're just single lots and they're surrounded on all sides, and of course they're less than 60 acres, there's no question they come in.
Right.
That's how the law works in Illinois. You just bring them in. You can ask them to voluntarily come in if they refuse, or you can forcibly annex them. And it's a straightforward process. I see her raising her hand. But, I think the 29th we can tell you where they stand, but I can't tell you how soon we can get them all done.
No, of course.
I know you're not asking that.
We're just asking for an update to it.
Yeah, we'll give you the update after we find the file.
Okay. Ms. Kostopoulos, did you have anything further?
Well, according to my information, they've already agreed to.
Oh, they have?
Yeah.
I think as part of getting utility or whatever. Yeah, it's already been. I mean, these are just for whatever reason nobody ever did.
These are electors that could have counted toward your population during this census, but did not.
Yeah.
But did not.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know.
Okay. Thank you. That will be investigated. Anything further?
About sometime in December, we had asked for just a staff to come back regarding parking along John Deere Road. A report on that. I think we had unanimously asked for that in 2 months. That would have been a few weeks ago. Want to make sure that that gets on the next
It's coming
meeting
forward. We're working on that.
or something. And then tonight, I mean, we had a lot of things. That was a 623-page packet, so it is what it is. But at one point, I thought we had talked about either things that were never brought to COW but put on the council meeting would either somehow be earmarked or that wouldn't wind up on the consent agenda just because it wasn't actually something that we'd ever talked about as a council. I think actually Alderman Waldron was maybe the one that had said that at one point. There was just a lot of things on, I mean, there was a lot of things that we had gone through the COW, but there was a lot of things on here that unless you read the packet, you just voted for something that we've never talked about and you don't know what's going on. And so I think that we need to, from my opinion, I think things should go to the COW before they come here. And that's the second thing of, we always historically, it went to the COW, you took a week, and then it came to council. I vehemently oppose, unless there is a really good reason for it, timing wise, IDOT needs this today, whatever, of things being on the COW and then on the agenda that night. Because while there's not a whole lot of press or anything covering this, for those residents who are interested, it gives the opportunity for them to engage their aldermen. It also gives us the opportunity, after having a conversation, to go back and have conversations with our constituents before making that final vote. I'm not sure why this is shifted and is.
If I can speak to a part of that, everyone is free to ask me questions about that when necessary, and I did have one councilman ask about that exact thing. There are several items we have not talked about. I check on the reasons for that. You know, of course, I'm involved in agenda setting, but and they all had to do with deadlines. But I would encourage you all, if you see that and you want something pulled so we can talk about it, please let me know, because we absolutely have the right, according to code, right, to refer things back to the COW. That could have taken place tonight if you wanted to talk about something further. And my assumption is that everyone's taking their job seriously and doing the reading that they are supposed to be doing. You know, we're not restricted to when and how we get the homework, as in quotes, done. So I would hope that no one is voting on anything that they don't understand or haven't taken the time to ask questions about. So, yes, Mr.
Could I ask you then a quick question? The change orders for like 18th Street, a couple of them were removed from the COW last time. There was no explanation why they were removed. And then they just showed up on the council meeting
Well,
tonight.
there were.
What was the reason that they got
that
pulled?
was one thing I checked on, and they were removed so staff could do a deeper dive, and that was
Correct.
Mr. Vitas.
They were on the
I
council
pulled those
last time.
because I had not had a chance to review them and they got onto the agenda. And I wanted to review the spending history on each of those to ensure that everything was accurate.
But then the question was,
And
why
they were
then
budget
weren't they on the
amendments.
COW tonight?
I was told because they were budgeted for.
That was going to be my comment. I
They
think
are
previous
budgeted.
administrations, the change has happened is that if the budget got approved and they were in the budget and we voted for the budget approved,
That goes
they've
on
been coming
consent,
directly to council.
which could
So
be.
that's one of the changes
But
that's
change
happened.
orders didn't.
No.
And these were change orders. And so
Right.
that's.
I think some of these items though have been budgeted, they've
Yeah.
been
Yeah,
approved,
yeah,
and
for-
they're coming.
All right.
For certain.
I will take the note on change orders and continue to work with staff on reasonings and making sure we have sufficient discussion ahead of time.
I wanted to make one point.
Yes, Madam.
So when it appears on the COW and it's also on the council agenda with the new Granicus Peak system, it'll assign a number. So you'll notice that 4 out of 5 items that were on the COW had a council bill number assigned. And then you could look down below and see where it was.
But that doesn't change the concept of
Yeah.
us having the conversation and then there being
a step in between so that
Oh,
we
I
can talk with
understand.
our
I just wanted to
residents. The residents can
point that
speak
out.
with us. It is something where this council has historically always done that, and I think it's a service to our residents because there has been many times where something comes up and then we have a chance and we talk with residents or talk with staff or whatever outside of the initial conversation, and we change things, we improve things. There's information that comes to light that we didn't know about. That doesn't happen, then all of a sudden it's done, it's passed, and say, well, it's too bad. And then that gets into what you can do to reconsider, which is a whole other thing that needs to be discussed. But
Okay, thank you for that. And do you know, like I said, please reach out ahead of time for things you want pulled or referred back to Cal.
okay. And so my last thing then, I guess, since we're talking about, I mentioned reconsidering. In our ordinance, it talks about to reconsider, and this is part of Robert's rules of you have to be on the winning side to reconsider. Our ordinance takes it a step further that not only you, but also the person who's seconding it has to be on the winning side, which effectively means that you've got to have two people change that. So if you had like a split vote, you'd have to have two people change their mind to reconsider. That I think needs to be changed to, so if you have the one person that changes their mind for reconsideration, then you can, someone who was on the failing side could second it, and then it could be.
So that one vote could be enough to flip it.
Exactly, because otherwise then you wind up creating this weird supermajority to reconsider things. So
That'll need some research to see how other places do that.
well, I mean, we can.
I know you can
make our
do what you
ordinance
want, but there's also reason to research to see how widespread a different practice is. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Tamien.
Thank you, Your Honor. This week, I was able to attend the QC Empowerment Network's Black Business Expo down at South Park. I just want to comment on how, I actually couldn't find parking at South Park in my normal parking spots. There are plenty of vacancies, but in the place where I've always historically parked, I had to go up and down the aisles. It was the busiest I've seen the mall in 10 years, and more so, the first time I attended the expo 4 years ago, I think there were 20 tables. This year there were 60 tables, and they ran out of tables. And so it was just a fantastic event. I'm really proud that they've chosen Moline to host it, and hopefully it will continue. I saw Alderman O'Brien there. I didn't say hi, but
That's normal.
It gave me a little bit of hope for the mall. I have some thoughts about things that could happen there, but there is a Filipino restaurant that there now as well. So just want to throw that out there. It's great. Yeah, just right next to the old Chick-fil-A. So
Do they have a liquor license?
they do not.
Thank you for
one you
bringing that up.
missed.
I did share some ideas with Mr. Graves, and I believe I copied you. Please send your ideas. That there can
Please
be
do.
initial discussion before things come to council. So
Thank you.
Mr. Moore. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Just a few things, Your Honor. There was a meeting last Friday, put together by Kate Whitley and my county board member, Porter McNeil. I was supposed to be there. I could not attend at the last minute, but a lot of good ideas for the east end of Moline. The chief can tell you we've had some troubles down there recently that made the paper. And I don't think we should wait for IDOT to the corridor project to begin. I think there's a lot of things we can be doing now with the land bank program, neighborhood associations and homeowners assistance, special service area, facade improvements, and Habitat for Humanity. There's just a lot of things, and I want to thank you, Kay, for helping put that together. I apologize for missing that meeting. And I think it's, I'd like to see some of that moving forward. And and we can talk about that later. Also with the revising the ordinances, with what has happened, and I'm just floating this out to staff, with that horrible decision that the Iowa legislature made to legalize fireworks sale. It's become an issue in the summertime around here. And I know it's currently against the ordinance, and I know we look the other way on 4th of July and, you know, New Year's Eve and all that, but it seems like it's from May to about Labor Day weekend now, and it's really becoming, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, and fireworks has really become more like explosives. I mean, you can hear that stuff from miles away. And if there's any way that staff, like police and fire, code, anybody could look at ways to strengthen that ordinance, you know, to make it more enforceable, I guess. And I know it's hard to enforce because everybody's setting them off all the time. But it's gotten to the point, I mean, you know, it's loud. I mean, you're gonna wake Al Van Acker up, and he's been dead for 40 years. Al's been gone a while. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor, sadly, I have an item.
Yes, I know.
I want to give you an update on drop-off recycling. You may have seen some little media bites in the newspaper. I can't avoid this topic. But just to give you an idea, the revenues, the tipping fees that are coming into the landfill have been a tiny bit better, and by a tiny bit, I mean like $5,000 or $6,000, which isn't enough to restart the program through RCMA. So RCMA is taking its time, getting through its budget, seeing if it's going to have any money available to help out with any city or any municipality that wants to restart it. So far, that's ongoing. So far, also, no city has shown an inclination to want to start up this program. We have said that we will partner with people, but we don't want to go it alone. So far, we have danced with no partners that have come.
Rock Island.
Rock Island?
They haven't pulled out, have they?
They haven't pulled out, but they haven't proposed anything.
That's true.
So it's easy to say you're still interested, but nothing's happening. So nothing's happening per se on that. We have a vocal group that comes every month and expresses their opinion to it. One of them is a county board member, but Rock Island County has shown no interest in starting anything. And neither have any of the rural townships. We've sent letters out to the rural townships saying, hey, this is an opportunity, because we're hearing from the rural folks and we're hearing from apartment dwellers and complex dwellers. But I wanted to update you and tell you there's not a whole lot that's gone on. RCMA is still watching its budget, but that's pretty much where it's at. The second thing I want to emphasize, and I guess this is for staff, maybe Joe, is that I heard here 2 weeks ago that Midland Davis would take recycling items at its facility. Joe, if you could touch base with Marty and Mitch and find out if that's the case. And if that is the case, we need to publicize that, especially to Moliners, that they can bring their stuff down to Midland Davis and deposit there. So it doesn't look like we're not doing anything. I'm not sure that Marty and Mitch know the numbers that potentially could come. So you may want to relay that to them, what could happen. But if they are interested in recyclables, let's publicize it and send folks down there.
Yeah, I don't know if they take everything.
Laura Davis did tell me cardboard, you know, your normal stuff,
Right.
cardboard, paper, plastic, not plastic, glass, and they're not very far from that drop-off site.
No, they're just a block
At least
away.
if staff could make sure Tory Brecht is pulled into that, you know, and
We
we've
will.
got all of our information correct before
Yes,
it goes out.
that's what I'm
The
emphasizing.
public.
Check with Midland Davis before we send the boards down there. Now, Silvis has started a program. I don't know if I've told you this. Silvis has started one in their public works facility, which is gated, and they have a staff person there that checks licenses, and they only allow Silvis people in there. So Silvis is like us. They have mandatory recycling, so they don't have a whole lot of folks that are just coming down to their yard. So it works for them at this point.
I will say that I brought up the dwelling units. I'm
More than 6
Thank
multifamily.
you. Thank you. I was
I'm here for you.
missing the term. I brought this up as the part of the update that I got about Ricama today at our bi-state intergovernmental meeting. That's just the Illinois side. So I fully understand that there is a lot in the strategic plan that staff is working on right now. This is like heavy duty lifting time to be ready and things done as we close out the year and get ready for a new budget in October. I do think that issue of what we want to see recycling wise at those multi-family dwellings needs to be addressed. I have gotten inquiries about people, and they're very, very much interested. When they pay this much in taxes, they want to have this service. And my response is, yes, I understand. There are also a lot of unintended consequences if you start imposing that on people who cannot afford it, because not every multifamily dwelling is the same.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to think through and work through as an organization on that particular topic, but I don't believe it's one that's going away.
Just as a clarification, when somebody says that, their taxes don't go towards that at all. It's a user.
Recycling is
Recycling, it's a user fee. So
they're just thinking about the services they get from the city.
I understand that, but it is important that we understand how the money works so that when people say, because, my road should be nicer because I pay a lot in property taxes. Well, there's not a property tax penny that goes into that street, so it's important to be.
Just to follow up on your comment, Mayor. Silvis, before it entertained putting something in their own yard, the alderman that is ramrodding this, that work in Silvis, went to every multifamily facility in Silvis to check with the property owners to see if they would recycle there. And it was a big fat no, that they have enough trouble with trash in their regular dumpsters. And they know where all the trash from that multifamily people will go. It'll go just into that one's full, they'll fill up the recycling. So there was no interest in Silvis.
I remember you sharing that at one time.
So it's no easy answer to this, but I just want to keep you up to date on what's going on with Rickham.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Schmidt.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Vitas.
Sure. Thank you very much. Just a couple things. We're going to have fun with flags, like on the Big Bang Theory. I'm not Sheldon Cooper. Okay. So, don't start.
That is.
So anyhow, Jeff Manis has been working with these different organizations, as you know, and he put in front of you a timeline for 2022, since it's council that approves the display of flags on River Drive, and starting out with the upcoming Missouri Valley Conference for its 14th consecutive year here. Those flags have arrived. They're great looking. They're downstairs. But those are basically ready to go up before the event starts. On the heels of that, we would take those down, and then for the Memorial Day celebration in this country, we would put up the American flags and take those down, as in June we return to the Pride flags that were previously approved. And eventually those go down to make way for our Quad Cities Marathon flags to go up at the end of August, and that's right around the same time we may have flags for the sesquicentennial that we're working on.
I just want to correct one thing you said. I'm not sure you're aware.
What's
the
that?
American flags do not come down at all.
They stagger them.
They stagger. That would be my expectation.
They're
That
staggered.
they would stagger them because Flag Day is like June 11th
Right.
or something.
14th. Yeah, we
14th. Thank you.
stagger.
And we just need to keep them up through July 4th, the whole summer.
That's why it's fun with flags, Mayor.
Okay, so that's what my question was going to be, because either you do it that way, or that when you're taking down the rainbow flags, then you put the
It's easier to stagger them. That's what they do in Rock Island.
Yeah.
Stagger. Then
Just makes more
everything's
sense. Yeah.
getting every.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. Because I was like, why does July have nothing? So
And then the last flag to go up would be late September, well, early mid-October, and that would be for the Quad City Storm. And I don't know if we're going to have any other requests, but the only other one that's not here would be to set something to recognize the sesquicentennial. And we, in that committee that's working on the marketing side of it, the promotion side of it, is probably going to bring something back.
Because is that going to be in the fall?
That's
August
the last
29th.
week. It's the last week of August, actually. The 29th is the actual anniversary date, so it's the several days leading up to the 29th.
So, I mean, maybe when we take the pride flags down, we could put
We can if
those
the
up at
flags
that
are
point.
available.
I mean, if you're talking about staffing time, I mean, they're already
Right, staggering.
standing up there and they stagger them. That would be, I think.
And let them fly for a while.
Yeah, and let them fly through the, because I think then, I mean, some people would just be like, what is that? And then. kind of
And
give
then
it
they
a
can
little
stay up till you take
You
marathon
can
flags.
share that with
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
committee.
I will bring that back to them because they have been working on branding. I mean, and it's been a real interesting discussion.
Because that'll be before the marathon.
They've made headway.
The marathon.
They've made headway.
Okay, thank
So
you very
that's-
much.
I'm not done yet.
Okay.
More? Oh, no. Just for clarification, though, I want to make sure Alderman Went, when we speak about,
Mr. Wen.
it's okay. When we speak about parking, we're dealing with a number of issues. We have the ordinance that reflects upon the landscaping requirements for any new parking lot that gets developed. Then there are the facts that some buildings are already developed and they sit vacant for more than 12 months. That triggers the landscaping requirement, i.e., for example, Best Buy, okay? Or anything that might happen at Gordman's or around the mall, for that matter.
I don't think that the 12 months is that it's vacant for 12 months. It is if the work you do over a 12-month period of time equals 25% to 75%, that's when the point system comes in. It has nothing to do with you being vacant. It has to do with the time frame in which you do the work. So it's not like a cumulative amount of work over 10 years.
Right.
It's if the value of the property in a 12-month period of time is rehabbed to between 25% and 75%. If it's over 75%, then you get to do 100% of the landscape.
Okay. Well, we're looking into that issue specifically. And then the John Deere Road, you're looking beyond the mall. You're looking all the way down toward.
Well, yeah. I mean, we just have asphalt.
It's a sea
fields,
asphalt, of course.
And we've got people who want to develop in those lots and come in, and we just have parking for parking.
Yeah,
sake,
well, that would be
direction.
outlot development, and typically stores like Lowe's or anyone else that's down there, when they acquire those properties, they usually acquire them and they overbuild their parking, and then that reserves future space for outlet development along highway corridors. So that's all highway commercial down there.
No, I understand that, but I think based on our ordinance, because the size of like Lowe's, that they had to put in that many parking spots.
It's a formula based upon square
Right,
footage of
and
facility.
so the idea is they probably don't need that many, but you know, if somebody like a drive-through coffee shop or something out in the thing, or some other outlet to develop down there,
right.
I think could be utilized rather than it just being yet another place that takes rainwater and heats up the city and is just an asphalt jungle. I mean, it could be something that's actually generating revenue for the city.
All right. You hear all that, Sean? You're here for a reason. So, I mean, we want to make sure we get it right.
Yeah.
Okay. All
I mean,
right.
Lowe's wouldn't have to, but we reduce.
I'm not letting anybody off before 9.
No, we have executive session too.
No, I didn't think we did. Oh,
He's got
surprise,
something
surprise. Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll make it quick. All right, so then, getting back to this then, I want to, before we forget, I want to thank Janine for getting the first blue light on the dashboard, because the Granicus got launched today. So her project, it was a lot of work on her part, and she headed the effort up. You know, the staff deserves a lot of credit for helping and pitching in, but it was her project that started before I got here. So that tells you how long she's been methodically trying to get to tonight. So kudos to our city clerk for bringing us, again, retooling the organization, which to me is fantastic. And then the only other thing I really wanted to bring up is we had a great meeting today with the Deputy Director of Regional Economic Development, Jonathan McGee, was in town. And we got an opportunity to meet with him earlier in the day, and then later in the day I had the opportunity to invite him over to spend time at the Tax Slayer Center. Why? is because the Tax Layer Center has funds that are earmarked through DCO as a line item right now through Representative Halpin. And that 750,000 is what we're referring to. So there is a lot of gymnastics in order to get this to work. But the good news is that, you know, those at the tax layer, Jeff Nelson with Metrolink was there, all the key people who are involved in this, absent just the owner of the hotel, okay? We're in that room, and there is certainly an opportunity to couple different things together in order to make that project fly over there. They were thrilled about the project. They liked the project. It fits into what the state is looking for. So I just want to share with you that, you know, the fat lady hasn't sung on that one yet, but we are working on constructing a deal in order to make that happen at the least cost to the city, right, and most cost to the state. But I want to share that with you because it was really a great meeting and good news. So anyhow, I'll stop because it's almost 9.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other staff updates? No? Hearing none, we will, Mr. Williams.
Your Honor, I make a motion that the council convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing of negotiating matters 5 ILCS 120/2C2.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Williams, second by Alderman Went. Roll call, please.
Alderman Went.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays.
Well, it's just one thing,
All right.
right?